nations over the next number of weeks and months to come up with an appropriate territorial acknowledgement to start these meetings. But we've been asked not to refer to Coast Salish territories as a broad coverage for our region, and so therefore we're just recognizing the place of this meeting, and we will continue to engage with the nations on a respectful territorial acknowledgement moving forward. With that, I do not believe there are any changes to the agenda today.
No, Chair. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve, moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Justice. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. That takes us to the adoption of minutes.
Great, thank you. That the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 14th, 2023 be adopted.
If there are no errors or omissions, a motion to adopt those minutes, moved by Director Toporowski, seconded by Director Manhas. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. No business arising, I believe.
Nope.
So that takes us to public input. Before we open the floor for public input, I recognize that I believe many folks are in the gallery today for item CR2 number 9. I just want to give a brief statement before we begin. Just a little bit of a context for our discussions today that will be coming up under that item, and for those who are here to provide public input. So that's obviously the pressing agenda item for our meeting today. The three-stream curbside collection program has been something that we have been working on here at the CVRD and engaging with residents for on many years. Feels like as long as I've been here, which is no longer a short time. It's been a long time, mostly a good time. But we do recognize there's a lot of concern in community, and I think it's appropriate that I address it before we move forward. In 2017-18, the CVRD was engaged with the community on 13 strategies that now form our 2018 solid waste management plan, of which three-stream curbside collection is a key strategy and necessary before a full organic landfill disposal ban can be put in place. In 2018, the board approved the solid waste management plan, which included the implementation of three-stream curbside collection service for all electoral areas. In 2020, the CVRD received ministerial approval for the solid waste management plan, which is a requirement through the process from the province. In 2020 through 2022, the pandemic obviously slowed further work on the implementation, and we've heard from residents across the region frustrated with the slow speed of the program moving forward. In the spring of 2022, the CVRD completed phase 1 of community engagement on service details, and into the spring of 2023, the CVRD completed phase 2 of community engagement, which is the final phase of engagement for the project. The purpose of the final phase was not to revisit three-stream service, whether it should be implemented, but rather to collect feedback from community on preferred curbside collection options, with option 1 being food waste, recycling, and garbage, option 2 being commingled food and yard waste with recycling and garbage, with the option to add glass to option 1 or 2. And while we have heard some strong voices opposing three-stream curbside collection, we have also heard from a large contingent of residents who have supported this service during consultation. Today, we are deciding on the service delivery model for the electoral area three-stream curbside collection. More specifically, electoral area directors will decide whether or not the organics collection component of three-stream service should be contracted out to private business under an open and competitive bid process, or if the organics, recycling, and garbage collection should all be provided to residents by one service provider. Turning to my electoral area directors, I want to remind you that your decision today will have an impact on this service delivery model for the region at large, including logistics, cost, timelines of implementation. And while bringing community perspective to the table, we will always need to think and make the decisions from a regional perspective. That being said, I am welcoming all input from the community as far as our public input that we're going into now, but I do want to remind folks, please be respectful in your comments, both to our elected officials and to our staff. Any folks that do not exercise good judgment in terms of how they phrase their input. I will cut them off and call them out of order. And so we just respect good decorum and respect for those who sit in these seats, and even more importantly to me, the staff that serves us in the region. So with that, I will open up public input, and I'll turn it over to our corporate officer just to lay out the ground rules.
Thank you, Chair. So we have public input on items on the agenda. There is a total of 15 minutes. Persons allowed 3 minutes to speak. If you'd like to go longer, the board has the opportunity to extend that by a motion.
Thank you. So the microphone is open. I do not believe we have any online for public input, so we'll go to in-house, and each speaker has up to 3 minutes. The more time that you cede to the next person, the more people that will have an opportunity to speak. Thank you and welcome. And just press the little button on the microphone there and make sure you speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you clearly. Thank you and welcome.
Jackie Barker, Cobble Hill, speaking on the waste service model vote. I notice nothing's counting down. I shouldn't tell you that, but should I push a button? Thank you. I have 3 points to make today. First, since last Wednesday's EASC meeting, 2,571 people over the last 4 days have signed an ongoing online petition about the future service model in areas A, B, and C, and about pan disposal. That's over 600 per day. I am expressing their wishes when I urge the CVRD to retain our 3 areas' current hybrid waste service model, to recognize that pan disposal is strongly preferred by residents, and in good faith, during any future bidding process, consider how pan promotes community values such as local employment as encouraged by the CVRD's social procurement partnership. Second, suspicion and lack of trust in the CVRD is a common theme in the petition's 200-plus comments. When 3 past CVRD chairs sign a petition such as this, that says a lot. Brian Harrison, Jerry Giles, and Jim Barker have the years of experience to know when things are not right, such as the inaccuracy in the staff report, which led to the decision that only organics could be collected by private business. 6 of the 9 directors voted to approve the CVRD-run model anyway. It is also not right that the late fall date to present a service model to the board for approval, this meeting, was moved up by 6 months without fair warning to the public, thus eliminating any meaningful public response. The report also ignored the performance of the elephant in the room, pan disposal, our area's private provider for the past 40 years. 7 other jurisdictions were consulted about their private providers, but no mention of the record of ours, which does not have the problems of the others. My third and last point is this. It's obvious that 6 of the regional areas wish to have a CVRD-run model, and that's great. But the other 3 areas, accounting for 54% of the total electoral area population, do not. This can be a win-win, but it will take one of the 6 directors to change their vote. The best way forward is to make sure residents in all areas buy into their area's proposed service model, because the program fits the public's wishes, not the other way around, where 3 areas are forced to accept a model they do not wish. Thank you.
Thank you. So, folks, I should have said that. Please, no clapping. I appreciate the support for the speaker, and I'm sure that we're going to hear some thematic support based on that, but I will welcome the next speaker, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Kim Bernard, Area B, and I'm holding before you with gratitude the Think Shawnigan plan that I'm studying, so I will speak with gratitude to item information 1, which is for the Think Shawnigan project that was just inaugurated, the 3 benches and the metal art to go with them, bike racks. So our Eco Club held a recorded community discussion on Saturday because that item was published the Friday prior, and we were able to speak to that. And so with gratitude, we noticed that and hope for consideration that garbage and waste management will also be addressed, and perhaps innovative and attractive solutions to those issues. We're thinking in particular the cigarette butt problem with a mind to the horribly dry conditions right now. We're hoping to pilot some innovative ways to capture that kind of waste, the returnables, wherever the public gathers really is where our boots go, picking up litter in the community. And so we would ask and suggest and hope that the CVRD has a plan for waste management along that beloved trail section as well. And further, my second point in the time I have remaining is that I was a appointed participant in both of those solid waste management committees in 2018 and currently as well with the implementation plan representing Area B and standing side by side with Pan Disposal, who was a participant at the 2018 panel. So I can speak to the process, and it is my understanding as a committee member that the process to be followed was to have been that the public engagement, the results of the survey from last fall was to be released later this summer, and then the financials also presented to the board later this fall. And so that was published at the CVRD's frequently asked questions page, which I helped develop because they asked our committee to imagine what those questions might be. And that's at Place Speak. So I believe that it appears that this process was rushed. And I'm concerned for all of us that perhaps it's worth just taking a step back and revisiting the process. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. We'll take our next speaker. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Evans.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in CR 29, thanks very much for the introduction. You saved me a lot of work explaining that. And in the CR 29, the wording sounds pretty strong. It says that a 3-stream garbage recycling and organics curbside collection service that will be implemented by the CVRD electoral area. That sounds like you're it's pretty well not too flexible. But Mr. Chair, I realize that you're a good manager and a proven manager, and that a good manager will always use all his resources. He'll know his resources and he'll use them. And you have resources out there in the private field that the CVRD could use. And if they're economical and what the people want, I don't see any reason why you can't consider that. When I look at the 2018 solid waste management plan, they had a citizens document. And in there, they stated at that time that this is an opportunity. And we should take that opportunity to use the best parts of it. And I hope that the CVRD can be a little bit flexible. Sure, they can run it, but they can use all the resources. And we have a lot of good resources in the Cowichan Valley. I hope you use them. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. So we do still have 7 minutes remaining and almost 8. So if the next speaker would like to come, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Savannah. I live in Area B. I only just recently came across this garbage disposal with CVRD recently, so I haven't gone through it all, but knowing that my taxes could go up by about $300 a year, and I don't even produce that much garbage is a little bit worrisome to me. In the last couple of years, myself and my young family have purchased a large acreage with the dream of building a home for now and for our family's future generations. And currently, we are actually struggling with the expanding costs from tax hikes that were not foreseeable and not feeling beneficial to me or my family, but they're mandatory. We don't have a way to opt out. In regards to this specific unwanted tax burden, we do not wish to participate in the mandatory garbage pickup. We are a family of 4 who accumulate minimum garbage as it is because of our personal choices to be less of a burden on the planet and to keep our costs low for garbage disposal. If this proposal was passed, how will this incentivize other local citizens to keep their garbage usage low? If a base cost is laid regardless of how much garbage one produces, it seems unlikely that every effort will be implemented to keep garbage accumulation low. How does this benefit the climate and all of CVRD's green initiatives? If this proposal is passed, I just said that, it's also a very well-known fact that when people struggle financially to just cover the basic needs for their families, like food, shelter, heat, water, and these are real things happening in the Cowichan Valley, environmental responsibilities fall way down on the priority list. This is why we see impoverished countries living in squalor. I think many of you may be lacking to the concept of how many people in the CVRD are truly struggling to make ends meet, and how can we continue to impose more and more on individual households if they don't feel they actually need it. Not everyone in this room or in the Valley cares about convenience. Many, if not most, care more about choice, supporting local businesses, independence, and less regulations. For those of us who do prioritize convenience, that's great. That is what companies like Pan Disposal offer to the Valley without imposing more tax strain on everyone else. We have to stop with this one-size-fits-all model for everything. This is not sustainable in so many ways, and it is infuriating to residents who feel like they don't have a voice. If this passes through, I truly believe that many of you are not understanding your constituents or what they are saying, and that us being here today is all just for show, and that's not a true democracy. Please stop pushing us into corners that we do not choose to be in. We don't want to pay for trucks to be picking up our garbage that we are happy to dispose of ourselves at a cheaper cost 3 or maybe less times a year.
Your time is up. I'll give you a couple more sentences if you wish.
Okay. I'd also like to briefly point out the upsetting issue of the government trying to come in and snuff out a local business that people currently have the choice to pay for or not, and that nobody has to pay tax dollars to fix them and maintain vehicles. What is the benefit here? I see much more burden than gain, and at the same time causing a small company to have to choose to close shop because the government wants a control or a piece of the pie. I do have a little bit more, but I can end there.
If there's time left after other speakers, you can always come up again. Thank
Okay.
you. So we do have just over 3 minutes left, and again, if speakers would like to provide time to others.
I can keep it
Thank
short
you.
and sweet. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Dodd. I'm here today to voice my concerns for a great deal of the South End community. As a contractor, I'm fortunate to see and know much of the pulse in this area. I can tell you, no one is in favor of this proposal. As a matter of fact, it goes against our rural atmosphere and our way of life. We're used to doing this on our own, and we're doing it just fine. Board, the constituents that pay your salary do not want this. I'll make it perfectly clear. Simple. As a contractor and business owner, I can tell you my own garbage expense is less than this fee that you estimate. And that's including my business and my own personal garbage. I can do it for a lot less. Now, in this region, we are happy to continue to reuse, recycle, and compost all on our own. We're doing it just fine. And that's the message that I'm trying to get through to you, that even though the government is pushing this agenda, we're fine here. We're doing it okay, and we don't need another expense that we know is just going to increase over time. So enough is enough, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have time for one more speaker.
Hello, Lorraine Benoit from Area E, which doesn't seem to have been presented, but we've had this discussion with previous councillors for the last 30 years, and for the first 10 years we lived in Glenora, we took care of all our compost, our organics, our recycling, and our garbage at a cost of about $50 per year. That meant 1 or 2 trips to Bings Creek once a year, twice a year, maybe max 3 times a year if there was heavy-duty cleaning going on. Since the council brought in our garbage recycling pickup, which I believe was about 8 years ago, I'm not great on the numbers, our costs are now in excess of $450 for a service that we use about 1 out of 6 times. Now you're looking at adding on compostable materials that every single person in our area that I know, and there's hundreds, all do their own compost. They do not want to give their organics away. And I've had this discussion with the previous councillor and with our current councillor multiple times. Not only I don't say we don't want this, I have made what I feel are valid suggestions for easier, more community-minded, more sustainable, more inclusive, diverse ways, all the words that seem to be getting used these days that would make a lot more sense and cost a lot less. So I just have a couple questions to put out to the councillors to please consider before you make a vote. Can you think of any example where there has been a government service taking over a private service of similar nature and has done it at a lower cost with a better level of service? One example. Can you think of one? Because I can sure think of a lot when government has taken it over, the costs have gone up, and the level of service has gone down. The surveys that were done in these areas, I was told at one point, well, there's no point because this decision was made back in 2018. So I, as some other members have previously expressed, feel like, is this just a waste of my time? To even make a presentation, to even fill out a survey, to even write letters and emails, because no residents that I know feel they're being listened to. And I don't know if this is considered a public-private partnership, but when government starts taking over private businesses, this is not acceptable. Please consider these points before you vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have exceeded our time. It's up to the board if anyone wishes to extend. I think, oh, okay. Moved by Director, I was almost going to say counselor. This is a board and directors, not a council. But moved by Director McClinton, seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So we'll extend public input for another 15 minutes. So we would ask maybe if those who haven't had a chance to speak yet get the opportunity, and if there's time left at the end. Hi,
Hello, Sheila Bell Irving, Shawnigan Lake. Thank you for letting me speak. I'll try to keep myself respectable this time.
You're always respectful.
Not so much this morning, apparently. So I'm really not going to say anything more about pan disposal because you basically have all heard it here. I totally and utterly agree with all these people. We like having our rural feeling, and we like having Tyler, wave at us when he picks up our garbage. Tyler's come to my help many times when I've had excess garbage dumped by people that didn't like me, truckers. So I'm going to talk about CR2, which is the St. John's Academy proposal. So I was sitting here listening to it, and what piqued my interest was the public park, that they want to put a public park in there. And it's brambles and natural water cleaning vegetation, so I don't know if they're going to remove it for a park. And the site is an old hotel and girls' school, and the waterfront is full of glass bottles, many of them broken. I know, because we have several of them on the shelf in my grandmother's cabin that we collected when we were kids and went diving there. It's really not a safe area to walk on the shoreline. That's why they have a huge, long dock. I also don't understand the logistics of this because I can't take my granddaughter to play at a school when school is in session. But apparently an old man in a Speedo will be able to do it at this beach. I don't understand how that. And there was a question about community water. What community water? We don't have community water down there. And that it was to protect the lake levels. And I just want everyone to be aware that community water is from the lake. So whether you take it from in front of your house, you're still taking it from the same spot or from the community water level. How come these questions weren't asked of the Shawnigan Lake School expansion when they did it? They just kind of, ran everything through. The other one I want to talk about is SR4, the raising of the weir in Cowichan Lake. Now, I know you guys all know how I feel about this, as my property was flooded from it, but I'm going to give you an example of the first rain event. Let's use my property as the example. Houses were flooded, docks broke away, shoreline drowned, beach gone, riparian trees fell over and died. Now, I understand we need to save water, so can we just stop and really look at the issue as a log and flog problem? Trees hold water, absorb CO2, and create oxygen. Let the forest recover and watch the lake level stabilize. Stop playing God with Mother Nature. She knows how to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. So we still have some spots left. To our speaker who had their time truncated, I don't see anybody else first rounders getting up. I always just like to get everybody an opportunity, but if you'd like to come back up and finish your input.
It kind of feels all broken up now, so I don't know.
Just resume from where you left off. We do recall.
Okay, well, that's good. Good to know. I'd also just like to briefly point out how upsetting it is that government is trying to come in and snuff out a local company and business that people currently have the choice to pay for or not, and that nobody has to pay tax dollars towards to fix and maintain vehicles. What is the benefit here? I see much more burden than any gain, and at the same time causing a small company to close up shop because government wants control and a piece of the pie. And I know that might sound harsh, but that is how it feels. I'm genuinely bothered by this and wish that many of you would recognize the hypocrisy here between promoting local businesses within our valley and crying about climate change, but then in the next move taking actions to ruin small businesses, local businesses, and then removing the incentive to create less garbage as a household. More taxes, more red tape, more regulations do the opposite of encouraging and supporting residents to do their part, because we already know how to do it. The mass majority of us do already very much care about the environment and where we live. We don't need to be told what to do, which often is the wrong approach, in my opinion, to do it. Words from the government are one thing, and your actions are another. I'm only concerned with actions now. Words mean little to me coming from our local representatives because far too often they or you do not seem to follow through, do not seem to follow up. Words are vague and often deceiving. Personally, I am over feeling that disparity of not being heard, and I wish to no longer consent to the games. I do not want your garbage monopoly. I mean garbage as in literal garbage, not a figurative thing, in my neighborhood or my valley. Thanks for hopefully listening, which you said you did, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. We do still have a few minutes left in our extended time. I just want to give opportunity for people to speak. We'll go to first-time speakers if they'd like. And I do want to just sort of recaution that when we get into aspersions of people's character and stuff, it's on a thin line. So just hopefully keep the comments respectful. Thank you.
I push this button or I'm on? I'm Andrea Davis. I am Pan Disposal. So I'm the person that is being threatened right now to have their company run over. The only point that I would like to make, because I'm so grateful for the community that has said so many things. I don't know how many of you have worked in waste industry, but I can tell you as the person who manages the office, having a flexible program we use tickets, it provides people with the control and it motivates them to make less because what they make is where they carry the cost and lower is better. So that's the only thing I would really encourage you to think about because the model that's being put forward is going to take that away and it's not going to encourage people to do what is right for the environment. So, thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a few minutes left, so if there's anyone else that would like to give public input.
I prefer someone else, but I don't want to waste time, so this is on the same subject, but not. Last year in 2021, or 2020, yeah, our taxes went up 23% without any improvements. This year, our taxes went up about 11.5% without any improvements. And when I look at the circled pie chart that's sent with our tax assessment form, 46% of that is for services we do not have. That means water, that means sewer, that means public transportation, and a few other little things. I just see, and I do see increases in salaries going up.
Sorry,
with-
I'm going to ask you to keep it to agenda items as
Okay.
per the policy.
Okay, so the taxes, this is part of another tax increase. And I know we've been told that there's a grant in place. That grant, as I recall, was to start the program. And we know that that grant will be a very small part of it. I also wanted to mention that I have heard from employees of CVRD that I talked to, and this will be a quote from one of the employees, is we are as a team, but we are considered a number, and they don't listen to us either. So I hope
I'm going to
that...
have to call that out of order.
Oh, okay,
So,
sorry.
sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's then just a request to be listened to and heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a few minutes left if people would like to give public input. And again, I'm just going to remind everyone to items on the agenda. I usually give a little latitude towards the tangent with which they might be connected, but thank you. Welcome, Ms. Bernard.
Once again, yes, Kim Bernard, Area B. And I just want to echo the comments made by Andrea Davis of Pan Disposal that what you see before you are the relationships that have built up over time. And in my particular case, I can speak to the level of community support that our club received through our annual cleanups. So this family has their finger on the pulse of the community. They're always listening to the social media. They see when an illegal dump has happened on the side of the road on their route. And they, of their own time and accord, will go and pick up mattresses and you name it. So like our community is so grateful for that level of support and service that I don't think the trust and belief is there that any other model could meet that level of service. So there's a high bar being set already. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Still have a little bit of time, folks, if you'd like to give input.
Hi, I'm Dave LaRocque. I live in Cobble Hill. I just want to agree with everything that's been said about the proposal for the garbage increase. And I currently, like many people, don't generate a lot of garbage, make 2 or 3 trips to Fisher Road once a year. I don't get sewer, I don't get water, I don't get street lights, I don't get really much for my taxes. And I've seen my taxes go up, increase well beyond what my income level has not gone up. So more or less on a fixed income. And so to me, it's almost like it's going to reach the point of confiscatory taxation, whereas I can't afford to, I'm going to have to throw my keys or not, maybe not that bad, but you know what I mean? We'll have to do something else because the taxes keep increasing. I don't get a service that I need, right? And anyways, that's it. So I just...
Thank you. I just want to clarify for folks in electoral areas, if it says water or sewer, that's a general number. If you don't have that service, you don't get taxed for it. So it's function specific, but that's just a point of clarification, not to create debate, but those pie charts are kind of generalities. But
Okay, thanks for the
just
clarification.
heard some of that, yeah. And we recognize that taxation is a huge thing. If you do pay attention to the entireties of our meetings, we often do address that. So we do have a little bit of time left though, folks. I could probably take 2 more speakers if they're clear and direct. But you could always just say also, because I get a sense many of you are here for that item today, so. It's on. Oh, it was on. Now there you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name's Dave Hutchinson. I'm from Shawnigan Lake.
Hi, Dave.
I wasn't prepared to speak, but since you've extended the time, I'd just like to make a couple of quick points that I commented on Facebook just this morning. In my view, the CBRD should not be providing any solid waste services. I see the public sector, your job is regulation, and I don't know whether you're compelled to provide the service by, you referred to some provincial
Yeah, we are.
document. You are actually, okay, I didn't realize that. But
Water,
just-
sewer, garbage, roads in municipalities, not in electoral areas, those are our, and then land use is our bailiwick as put out by the province.
So you're actually compelled to provide the service with the trucks?
Well, we're compelled to provide solid waste services. There is some discretion on how those services provided, but this is not question period, this is public input. I'll try and address any of your input during the agenda item.
Anyway, just to be quick and reiterate, I think a lot of people view the public sector as regulators, not as service providers, and a lot of the concern here is that you're competing with the private sector, so, thanks.
Thank you. Now, we do have enough time for another speaker if someone would like.
Joyce Benson,
Hi, Joyce.
Cowichan Valley. Listening to everyone, I hadn't planned to speak, but I'm so impressed with the concerns and input. Something just flashed into my mind. It would be really, this is input, it would be really beneficial, I believe, to the entire region if the CVRD spent more time figuring out how to stop shipping our waste down to Rabanco in Washington State and focus on that priority rather than trying to change what's already working really well, it sounds like, in the rural areas. So I do feel there's a responsibility that the CVRD should be more accountable for. And my understanding is that when the garbage goes all the way down to Rabanco, which you can imagine what that produces with emissions, et cetera, North Cowichan charging us a tax for reducing emissions, that they then, my understanding is they then turn it into energy. What are we doing on Vancouver Island to figure out our garbage and our waste, I don't want to use the word production, but actual responsibility for how it is being handled, where it is going. It's the same as having our sewage outfall into our Cowichan Bay. So that to me would be a much bigger priority and focus that we could all get behind. Deal with the garbage locally. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. All right, I think we're out of time. We probably kicked a little bit over both times, but unless the board wishes to extend again, we can move on with our agenda. And I want to thank everyone for the input. We will provide some clarification on some of the points that were made during the agenda item, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. We're on 5. Delegations, Mark Sanders, Cowichan Valley Primary Care Society, Family Care Crisis.
Welcome and thank you for your patience. I appreciate you being here today and look forward to your presentation. Please go ahead.
Great. I want to make sure I can, want to make sure that I can see my screen here. There we go. And I've got control. Okay, so.
Down arrow to flip your slides forward, I believe.
Oh, yes, but I'm now not seeing them again. So first,
He's just getting yours set up so it's working on WebEx.
While it's getting set up, I'd just like to thank the CVRD for the opportunity and privilege for giving this presentation today. Up until yesterday, I didn't realize it was a 10-minute limit, and so the slide deck is a bit long, and I've timed myself when I move quickly through it, and it's about 15 minutes. So I guess I'm asking if there might be an extra 5 minutes for my time today.
Been moved by Director Staples, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Now you have 15 minutes. Is that better?
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
And I'm trying to be reasonable, so please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Some
And
people may think differently.
Just like to welcome also 2 fellow board members are here, Dr. Zoe Pullen and Dr. Patricia Seymour, and Dr. Aaron Carruthers, I think, is listening in. So Thank you very much. So Cowichan Valley Primary Care Society, I guess a group of, this is an update from a group of family doctors who got together a little over a year ago to talk about the crisis that we're seeing in our community. And we were very fortunate to have, okay, I'm going to slow down here, sorry. And I'm going to stick to the slides. So the Cowichan Valley Primary Care Society is a new entity, just weeks old. We have a board of directors, which is 5 family physicians that are here from the Cowichan region. And over the last year, we have had some support from the Cowichan Valley Division of Family Practice in forming a working group to work through this problem. So what is our agenda? It's to connect, to explain our concerns regarding primary health care in our community, to share an idea that we have, so a possible one solution, and to hopefully engage with you. So a bit of background, and I've been a family physician in this community for 24 years. I wanted to put that out there as well. I work right next door. A little bit of background nationally, there are 5 million Canadians who don't have access to a family physician. The workforce is older, and provincially over 1 million residents don't have access to a primary care provider as well. And here in the Cowichan region, approximately 20 or 21,000 unattached patients. And that's 17,000 in 2016 by census. And actually, if we go back to when I was on the division about 10 years ago, there were very few unattached when we looked at that. So this number has been going up quickly. When we look at the net number of primary care providers in our community, it's actually kind of gone down, -5 in the last 7 or 8 years. And we are having really big trouble recruiting and retaining anybody now. The population, 91,000, is increasing, and the baby boomer demographics, we're going to see a sicker and older population for the next 10 years. And we know here in Cowichan that we have an older population compared to many places in British Columbia. So our little group that got together, grassroots group, a little under a year and a half ago, talking what can we do, we first went to our division. We said, we need an updated survey. We need to see where people are at. And they agreed to do this survey. And there was some alarm. We had a great response. 72% of doctors who have panels of patients responded to this survey, and in August. And half were feeling quite significant symptoms of burnout, where the pandemic had been hard. Nearly 100% were worried about the future of primary care. Nearly a third were looking to retire within the next 3 to 4 years, which would be 2 to 3 years now. And about a third were saying they were going to give up working in the hospital in the next 6 months, and that has occurred. As of the last number, 16 family doctors had stopped doing hospital work in the last year, and the number will be more as of July 1st. I'm going to skip this slide, the kind of models that we have. It's in your handout. What we see. So what is it that we see as people working in, with panels of patients, seeing people? We see family doctors who want to retire who can't find replacements. And the kind of moral residue and the feeling of guilt that brings and the suffering is real. We see large family doctor clinics right here in Duncan who are at very high risk of closing their doors. And those that remain in those clinics, we see the possibility of them retreating into solo or very small practice, which is something we tried to get a hold of or away from a couple of decades ago. We see a high level of distress actually and suffering in the primary care family physician community. The hospital is facing an incredible severe human resource crisis. We have a $1.4 billion new hospital coming, and I am worried that we're actually not going to have people working in that hospital, our greatest resource. And we see a huge potential for more citizens to lack proper primary care, leading to ill health. This is a very busy slide. Basically, what I'm going to say is that if the worst case scenario happened and a third of doctors actually retire in the next 3 years like they said they were going to, And if we get no new people to replace those doctors in Cowichan region, that's going to be potentially another 23,000 unattached patients on top of the 21,000. So that's nearly half the population. And that is, I mean, that's the kind of the worst case scenario, but even if it was half that, even if we can only attract half, that's a very sizable number of our citizens. So why is there such this, local, provincial, global problem? Well, it's multifactorial and complicated. I think one thing is that, and in BC, we have the most primary care providers or family doctors per capita, actually, in the country. But the work is different than it was when I graduated 30 years ago. There are too few doctors who graduate from family medicine who actually go into family medicine. Many go into Emerge, many become hospitalists, many now do addictions medicine, many do palliative care, pain medicine. There are umpteen types of careers that doctors can have, but they all come from the same stream. And the numbers of graduates of family practice residency has not kind of kept up with all of those streams. There's an increased priority on life-work balance, and I'm not thinking that that's actually a bad thing, and it is what it is. But people aren't going to maybe sacrifice themselves and work like they did 30, 40, 50 years ago. Patients are more complicated, like that is for sure. Just in my career, it feels that way. There's more work to do. I've talked about the increased specialized work. We are not training family doctors locally yet. There is a residency program coming. I'm on the steering committee for that. It's really exciting, but the first residents that we might see graduate from that are over 3 years in the future, and this crisis is now. And that will hopefully help with some retention. There is a pay gap between family docs and specialists, always has been, but there are across the country family medicine residency training spots that go unfilled. And maybe that's one of the reasons, or maybe they're just scared spitless to go into this primary care. And fear of the current state is real. I've had residents, R2 residents, phone me, family doctors in training, saying that they're scared to graduate into this system. Aging workforce, there's a lot of gray hair in our community on the primary care side, and the pandemic was really, really hard. So our idea is that to create a new hub, multidisciplinary community clinic in the Duncan area that functions as a non-profit society and hopefully with charitable status. And that hub clinic and that organization, that hub, would be expandable to other regions in our region. To partner with community. Like it's like phone a friend. We need community to be a part of solutions. And we want to create something that supports both longitudinal community family practice and inpatient care. We have a unique situation here in Cowichan. There's only a handful of regions in the province that where family doctors are the MRP or most responsible physician for majority of inpatients. We're one of them. So like our needs in the community are unique. Up until now, we've just been doing it all. Doctors have been going, looking after their patients, looking after other people's patients, come and then go into the office, then go in and deliver babies. And it's been like, do it all, but that model is not going to work anymore. And we want to build on relations, excuse the acronyms, sorry. We want to collaborate and work with the other services that are out there. So I'm going to skip this slide. When we started and we formed our nonprofit, this is just a graphic of how we envision this framework. We see the nonprofit society being the business operations and partnering with community. So we see a board that would be half primary care physicians and maybe nurse practitioners, and the other half would be community members. So a community-driven, community responsive, and where you can actually pivot more easily to the needs of the community. This is one of the, the downsides of, ministry or health authority driven ventures, is that it's really hard to kind of pivot and move. But now if we have a community driven process. And the residency training program, I've thrown it on there because it would be so nice to model for new to practice physicians, a new way that doctors can work in the community, but also kind of do the other things, the hospital work that they want to do in a compartmentalized way perhaps, or the chronic pain, so that people can do, they can do their specialty piece in family medicine, but they can also have a panel of patients that they are looking after. On our wheel, our graphic, the front wheel is the patient medical home. This isn't a new concept, but basically what we want to do is have a multidisciplinary clinic so that when a patient arrives, they see the right person for the right problem at the right time. So that we're leveraging, kind of top of scope as opposed to, the family doctor seeing, everything. Like for me to, see people for their suture removal, that job could be delegated. And so we look at, how can we leverage people to working at top of scope and working together and learning from each other and providing better care. The back wheel is something that I think has really been lacking in many systems in healthcare and primary care, and that's how do we create a joyful and sustainable workforce going forward? So this is actually the driver of this bicycle. And it's, I think that there really needs to be a solid lens on this aspect. So, many, and you can read what's on the spokes, and I think we can just, there's many, many ways that we can think to support the primary care providers, and then we know that those people are going to be doing a better job of looking after people. So that's our framework. I'm going to kind of skip this just to say that our concept also involves pods of care where we would have family doctors and nurse practitioners working together, looking after large panels of patients so that there would be a little bit of built-in redundancy. So say if a doc has a week that they're working at the hospital, that there would be some backfill to look after. Or say if a doctor's been working 40 years and they want to retire and they've given sufficient notice and they can't find a replacement, that there's actually some backfill and that person feels they can retire. I'm going to skip that slide. So this is an important slide. I want to just have you imagine that this main bicycle in the middle is the hub clinic in Duncan. But then we could have patient medical homes and pods of care in Mill Bay or Chemainus or Lake Cowichan, all under the umbrella of this nonprofit organization. The primary care network is an existing structure that does provide allied health, and we would be saturated or permeated with that. There's a new urgent primary care center that's being developed as a ministry and health authority venture. We want to work with and collaborate with that. We want to support the hospital. This is a real standout for this model. And we want to, if doctors, other family physicians' office, we have ideas how we could support individual independent family physician offices with this as well. So our timeline going forward, we need some startup funding. We're just kind of family docs doing this off the side of our desk. We need an executive director. We need we need help. So that's a big key. And thank you for we did receive an small R Cowichan grant. We want to collaborate moving forward. If a year from now we were opening a hub clinic, that would be just awesome. We've engaged a number of organizations so far in our region, and this is part of our community rollout. I think I'm going to skip the key points because I've kind of covered these, and they're in your handout. And I just want to skip to this slide in terms of engagement. Why are we here? Well, we're here to, the idea of collaboration on what our community needs and deserves. Is there a way to create a task force? I think we tend to work in silos, the division's doing this, the health authority's doing this. Is there a way to create a community task force? And I know that that's been done in other communities. We're looking for connections. If you've got any idea who we can talk to kind of move this thing forward. Financial support would be awesome. We need seed money to try and pay for an executive director. We're looking for public relations support, grant ideas. Is there somebody at the CVRD that could be a liaison so that we can, be a bit back and forth? And are there things that the CVRD could do with respect to healthcare going forward in terms of clinic space, land development opportunities? When developers come to say, I want to put up a multiplex or whatever, can there be, things that could be thought of outside the box in terms of healthcare? And other, any other ideas? So there you go. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go to the directors shortly. First of all, I want to thank you for your work. I just got a couple opening questions. I think I saw Directors Wilson, McGonigal, Manhas. I'm going to get my list written down first because if I miss anybody. Yeah, I'll get there. And Justice, Douglas. So we'll add Morrison. So I do want to say, I just have a question because, what really stuck out to me, and I know in this conversation, it's probably not what should stick out to me, but because it felt like a contrast. On the back wheel, you talked about the joy of the workforce. And I know it's always been a struggle as long as I've been around, but I think back to working together around hospice work and that pool, that team that we brought together. And although it was always, felt like you're pushing a lumpy boulder uphill sometimes, there was always sort of like a joy for the passion for the work. Do you feel that like in yourself and in your colleagues that that's really broken down over the last 5-7 years relative to where it was?
Totally.
Yeah, and for me that's heartbreaking because working with all of you was such an inspiring thing for me, and I think for most of us that were around the table at that time and what we were able to achieve. And it felt like even though it was a bit of an uphill battle, it was successful. And it was because of like the dedication and the passion of all of you that kind of inspired, I think, all of us and our board at the time to sort of come in behind and support that. So I just want to say that that's, sort of heartbreaking, but I think that it's a story that we're hearing around everywhere. But I think maybe if we look back on that work, maybe that shows that there's and what you're doing by being here today and forming this society, maybe we can step ahead of the crowd in terms of trying to resolve these issues and get back to that place of sort of joy for the work. And so I just want to say thank you for that. I'll go to my speakers list and then I'll have some comments and questions maybe further along. I've got Director Wilson, McGonigal, and Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Dr. Sanders. It's a real pleasure to see you here, and he's my family doctor. So. My apologies. No, it's really good to see you. Thank you for coming here. And the board knows that I've often said before that we should stick to our core services, our mandated services. But in this particular case, I'll support you 120%, and with your association, with anything you might need, and I'm sure that a lot of my colleagues here will as well. Question is, basically, what do you need? What do you need to bring this to fruition? And my second question is, can I be your liaison person? Thank you.
Well, I'll start with question number 2.
I'm sorry, but that would be
sure.
a conflict of interest, I believe, a patient-doctor confidentiality.
Sorry, doctor, go ahead. He was... Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so
I think Director McGonigal was trying to make a joke.
Okay, for sure. I had to really think about that for a second and just make sure. So, yeah, absolutely, Mike, you could be the liaison person. That would be wonderful. I think that just to have an ear to say, okay, that would be great. And what do we need? We are, as a group of 5 now, we had, through the winter, we had a working group, and the division funded that working group. And so we had a project manager who was kind of keeping us organized. We had a little bit of funding so that when we were having the umpteenth kind of, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening meetings, that we were at least being reimbursed for that. And that we're not now. It's just kind of, this is just the passion. Like, we believe in this. But it's heavy. Like, it's really heavy to carry it. And so, you know, I don't like it when I do this, but, you know, I am passionate about this. And, you know, I want to create something for the next generation. Like, I'm kind of near the end of my career. And I want to create something for the next generation, for, you know, for my family and for the citizens of the valley. And so, you know, we need support. You know, we need money, and we need to create a board that is diverse and with you know, with expertise, because we don't really know anything about this. We're just trying to do this off the side of our desk. So, you know, I think that conclusion slide is, you know, it sums it up in the list of things that, you know, if there's grants or if there is some way for us to, you know, if there's a way, or if you have an idea on how we could get some seed money, that would be the most helpful thing.
Thank you. I'll go to Director McGonigal next, and then I have Manhas, Justice, Morrison, and Staples, but if I've missed you, just put your hand up, please.
And I
Oh, I had
apologize,
Douglas, then Staples.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, for the attempt at levity. I thought a little bit of that might help Mr. Wilson here. First of all, thank you very much, Doctor. What we're seeing in the Western communities, for instance, is with the loss of our family physicians, a real disproportionate amount of people who are without family care. What has worked is the community health network and the primary care providers within the health authority, within, for instance, the nurse practitioner, and paramedicine, which has taken a lot of pressure off what you had suggested, sutures, medication, of those people within the community who need that sort of service that could be provided by paramedicine instead of by a doctor's office. So I would be extremely impressed if there would be an opportunity for an initial hub and an opportunity for expansion within even the Western community. We have 2 doctors for a population of approximately 6,000 people. And I know we're all good mathematicians, but if a doctor has 1,000 patients per se, we have 4,000 people in our area without a doctor. So that puts a strain on not only the health system, but the social structure of the community. If we struggle socially, we struggle economically. So I will do everything in my power to encourage participation and whatever we can do to leverage some of those opportunities. I myself have to travel from Lake Cowichan to Cobble Hill for a family physician. So the majority of my uptake is by phone. And I am at the tail end of the boomer class, so I'm struggling with some health issues myself, and they're going to get probably worse as I age. So I appreciate your passion and those alongside you, and we'll do everything we can to help this to fruition. More of a comment than a question.
Thank
Are
you.
you taking patients?
No. Better levity that time, Director McGonigal. Because we all knew the answer. It's kind of dark humor, though. I've got Directors Manhas, Justice, Morrison, Douglas, and Staples, and then Martman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sanders, for your presentation. Does your society, I got 3 questions. Does your society support the provincial government hiring back the primary care providers and nurse practitioners who were forced to leave their practices because they were not vaccinated for religious and or personal choices? One question. Second question is, do you know how many there would be in the Cowichan Valley of nurse practitioners that had to leave their jobs because they weren't vaccinated, and how many primary care doctors in that? And my third question is, I always say stay within our own lane to keep our taxes down for our local taxpayers. This seems to me right now that what we're doing is actually downloading provincial funding responsibilities onto our local taxpayers.
Sure. Hi. So I guess the second question first. I have no idea how many physicians, nurses, or health professionals were forced to leave their jobs. I have no idea. The first question is, I think that, when it comes to COVID vaccination, we've come a long way with COVID-19, a long way compared to the beginning of the pandemic. We know what the virus is. We know how it's transmitted. We know how to treat it. We've got antivirals and so on and so on. And so we're in a very different stage. And so I don't believe that in primary care that there is any restriction of primary care physicians practicing with or without COVID vaccination. So I don't that would not be anywhere part of a hiring process, whether or not they're vaccinated or not. So, and the third question.
Yeah.
Oh, and the downloading of the third, that's right. And you know what? I mean, yeah, like we're in a public healthcare system. But and healthcare is a right in this system, not a privilege. But there's 5 million Canadians without a family doctor or primary care provider. So there's something going wrong, and it's getting worse. And so, I mean, lobbying to higher levels of government, lobbying, that is definitely a part of what we do as a profession. But at the same time, we're seeing success in neighboring communities with this kind of a model. Which I think is really important to point out. And so, do we stand back and kind of wait for, the provinces or the federal government to kind of fix this? Or do we take it, a part of this problem? It's not going to be the whole solution. Do we get community to be a part of, creating at least one solution or one remedy here? And so, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I wrestle with that. I really do. But at the same time, I see neighboring communities succeeding, and I worry we're going to lose even more care providers to those communities who are succeeding in this, in engaging their community.
Thank you. Director Justice, then Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Dr. Sanders, for a pretty compelling presentation. To the directors, as for Councillor Manhas's and others' idea that we need to stick to our own lane, I would note that communities like ours need to pay significant portions of our hospital capital costs in order to secure hospital care for their residents. I know you mentioned, and I know some other communities have found that they need to support primary care in order to secure reasonable health care for their residents. I wonder if you could give us an example or two of communities that have been successful in developing a community-driven, community-connected, hub-type model to either serve as models for our thinking or inspirations.
For sure. So, a year and a half ago, I think that the closest to us and the most loosely based, it's a loose, our idea is loosely based on Shoreline Medical in the Saanich Peninsula. So Shoreline is a non-profit society with charitable status. They were initiated 5 or 6 years ago. It was a group of doctors doing exactly this, who saw some big problems in the community with unattachment, huge unattachment. And also the Saanich Peninsula Hospital was really suffering from inpatient care provision. So very similar to what we're talking about. So what they did is that they came up with this idea of this nonprofit with charitable status, and they approached their hospital foundation and said, you guys have been raising money for the Saanich Peninsula Hospital, but your greatest resource, which is the human resource, is one that's not been supported, and we would like to, partner with you or have you partner with us to try and support that. And they had to really shift their thinking. So they actually changed their name from Hospital Foundation to something like Hospital and Community Foundation. And they started to raise some money, and a portion of that went into this society. Well, it's been a real success. So they, when we went and toured Shoreline, which was started in Sydney and has now expanded to Brentwood Bay. So they have a satellite clinic, and they're looking at expanding again now. They went from 5 doctors to 25 when we went to see them. A year ago, they'd attached net attachment of 10,000 patients in in Saanich Peninsula, and they were providing over 60% of the unattached inpatient care provision at Saanich Peninsula Hospital. Like it was, it was just huge numbers. And when we went there, we met happy doctors. That was the other thing. They were supported. They were doctors who didn't have to be the business owners in this tough kind of place of scarcity of resources, and we know that that's what new to practice physicians are that's what they want. They don't want to be business owners. So that's probably our greatest model, and we're still in touch with that group. But we are there. There's West Shore Communities has got a new nonprofit that they're working on. South Okanagan has got one. Kootenay Boundary has got it is happening around the province. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You good? Directors Morrison, then Douglas, then Staples.
Thanks, and thanks for the presentation. And as you were going through your slides, I'm sitting here thinking that, a year or back in September, my doctor retired. I became an unattached patient. I registered for the program for new primary care, and after a few months, I called them back and said, have you got any sort of guesstimated timeline? And they told me, well, a year and a half. And, I'm just thinking about the fact that years ago I read a book called Boom, Bust, and Echo by David Foote, and it spoke of the, impending boom of people that would be aging, and now I are one, and it's a little scary, and thinking that we need to determine, we need to find the solutions. So you found the solutions. And one of the challenges that you've already heard a little bit of is this isn't really our lane. And I understand where my colleagues are coming from, but I'm also, everybody here on the board table doesn't have to listen to this, but I heard a saying at the FCM conference a little while ago where the feds have all the money, the provinces have all the regulations, and local government has all the problems. And here you are today, and this is a problem for our whole community. So I would just pose the question that we can't, at least I don't think we can, get into the business of supporting something that's of an ongoing nature. But if we could, we have strategic initiative fundings and that sort of thing where we could possibly consider in our budget a one-time funding opportunity. Is there a way that you could present a number or a package to us where we could look at being a one-time sort of foundational funder, but not be involved in the responsibility for an executive director over a period of 3 to 5 years?
That's an excellent question. And I think that would be, from my standpoint, like if I could have it all, that's what we're looking for. Because I think if we can get some upfront money and get this ball rolling, even, rolling down our wheels on our bicycle, that's what that graphic's about. If we can get actually going downhill on Mount Zuelim on that bicycle, I really think we'll pick up steam, and I think we'll be able to get other entities such as the Hospital Foundation or what have you to help with kind of the next kind of piece of foundational funding. Once you really get this ball rolling, like Shoreline, actually a large percentage of their operational money now just comes from the money that is put back in from where the physicians are paying a split overhead, just like I do in my office next door. So it's all about kind of getting this going, having a bit more support, infrastructure support, and then it can almost be self-funding eventually. But to get there, I mean, how much? I don't know. Like we really do need kind of a year of having an executive director. I really think we need somebody who's dedicated, who's skilled, who can really take all these notes we've been keeping, minutes, organize, who's connected, And we need, $15,000 to get a charitable tax lawyer to start working on that process, which takes 6 to 8 months. And so, maybe, I don't know, we need $100,000, $200,000 to really get this going.
Follow up? You're good? Thanks for that. I was going to say, you don't have to answer that right now. Maybe you could follow up with us offline, but now we know, so thank you. I have Director Douglas, Staples, and then Martman to close, but I do have a couple of comments at the end. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Sanders. I know with the hub clinic, you meant doctor, sorry. You mentioned the hub clinic having a centralized location in the Duncan area. However, with the new hospital going in on Bell McKinnon, we are envisioning, especially medical services being developed in that surrounding area. Do you think that could potentially be a suitable spot for the hub clinic, or is there? I guess there's obvious advantages being right here in Duncan as the core of the whole region.
So I think so, because I can see pros to both locations, and I think that beautiful new hospital site and where that's going, and I think that proximity to the hospital, encouraging the doctors that are there to be working in the hospital, I definitely see that. And a new build with natural surroundings, like that would be amazing, right? The healing. But then I do think about all the patients in my practice who walk, to my practice. The Indigenous community that, many of these people who live close and may not have transport. And I haven't explored what the transport plans are for people going to the hospital, but I do worry about that piece, and especially as the hospital moves out. And so I think that we're not fixed on either kind of formula, and might want to bring in, more people to discuss the pros and cons, like yourselves, actually. That would be a good.
Thank you. Follow up? Nope, you're good. Director Staples and then Martman.
Thank you. I won't weigh in on the Duncan versus new hospital site. I think that that there's definitely pros to both, but I'm familiar with Shoreline, and Shoreline does have, as you said, they have the one that's right in downtown in Sydney, and then they also have a satellite that's right by the hospital. And so there's already proven sort of ways of doing it. But thank you, Dr. Sanders, for coming to speak to us today and bringing this to us. And I'd just also like to acknowledge that my doctor is in the room. So hello, Dr. Pullen. I didn't see you earlier. So one of the two things I'd like to mention are that we have a health network in Cowichan. And so my question first is, have you done this presentation to the health network?
So thank you for that. We, by the time we kind of got to it, we did present to Cindy Lizet and Val Nickel, who are from the health network. Yeah. And they provided a letter of endorsement for us, actually, which I'm hoping might be in your package. Mm-hmm. And our plan is to present to the broader our Cowichan group in September at their next meeting. They've kind of paused for the summer, but we're on the docket for that.
Thank you. I just wanted to just ask that first before, because my suggestion would be we don't fund the health network, but we're a flow through for the funding for the health network on behalf of Island Health. And to me, that makes the most sense to be the place that this actually can grow and that group can come together that would do the work of implementing this. I mean, Val she started the practitioners, the care, I can't remember what it's called, the Division of Family Practices. Mm-hmm. That was one of her babies many years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like the right people are at that table, and whoever's missing can easily be brought into that table to have it kind of be the birthplace for that sort of more strategic development of what you're speaking to. And the second is, making sure the Hospital Foundation is also there at that presentation as a guest to that in September, because they should also hear this, because I do believe that they would also be a very good source of being able to provide the necessary means of the fundraising and supporting what you're saying. And once sort of that's developed, then an ask to what the regional district may do as a one-time, as Director Morrison stated, may be fairly clear, given all the partners kind of having a session around what is possible and what everyone sort of can do and how they can proceed with that. So that would be what I would offer as a really clear way forward, I think, based on the strengths that we already have in our community to do this type of work.
Thank you. Director Martman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Saunders, for the presentation. I find it really interesting when health filters on down to local government. I think my other colleagues have echoed that. I really appreciate your visual of the bicycle. You really do put it across well with what you have trying to get across. I'm wondering, though, in some ways that you aren't building putting a recipe together that's matching other places, trying to put all the ingredients based on what you have around you to build something and grow something or bake something maybe. My question is about the future of that baking. When you have something in place and you have it on the ground and you start with a hub, is that hub going to stay under the umbrella of MSP, or do you have another funding visual?
No, the plan would be that this would stay under the umbrella of MSP. So this would be, and that's what Shoreline has done, right? This would be just like I have a private clinic next door. There's 8 doctors. We work together. We share call. We pool our. We pay a split of overhead to cover the costs. This would kind of take the place of that. We would be billing medical services plan in this model, and the way Shoreline works is that they pay a split. And it's interesting, the way that they have worked this, because the heterogeneity of offering to family doctors is one of the key pieces there. So a doctor in Shoreline can work 5 days a week full time, or they can work a day and a half a week. So we found that like not every doctor is the same, but that the split of overhead is slightly different, and it favors the person working 5 days a week. So they'll pay whatever it is, 30%. But the person who chooses to work a day and a half a week can do that, but they might pay 35% because the lights have to stay on and people have to be kind of covering their patients when they're not there. But this is a way to bring new doctors in. So it's all under MSP, a little different than Shoreline. I see us working with nurse practitioners in this model. Now, nurse practitioners can't bill MSP. But Island Health has nurse practitioners that get delegated here and there, and they come with a contract. So there would be I see Island Health contracted nurse practitioners being part of these pods of care, working together with family physicians, not kind of separately looking after panels of patients. And I think both groups bring different skill sets, actually, to the table, and they can really complement each other. So there would be a little hybrid there, but this is not any way a for-profit model. It's not a way for doctors to make more money than they would make on the fair market, because that's not a nonprofit. This is a way to leverage community and create a model that is where a new-to-practice physician doesn't feel they need to join something and sign a 5-year lease, because they don't want to do that now in this scarcity of human resource.
Follow-up?
Thank you. No, I'm good.
Thank you. I've got Director McClinton, and then we'll see if I get more on there.
Thank you for squeezing me in, Chair. I appreciate it. Really appreciated the presentation. I'm one of those people that doesn't have a doctor, and I spent a decade working as a frontline care worker at Ledger and Queen Alexander, so I have a unique perspective. Just a couple quick comments. I agree with Mayor Staples. I think she had some great ideas there, and I think that's a good place to start. It's both sad and refreshing that you're here. It's sad that this sort of seems like it's being downloaded onto us, and that we were in this crisis, but it's just really impressive that you're taking this on and doing this work on behalf of the community. So I want to thank you again for that. I'm just really hesitant to be, picking winners and losers in the private sector, so that I'm struggling with that, but I think there's a lot of good that can come out of that. I guess I was just wondering, is there any sort of shortcuts you could take by, going under Shoreline or working with some of those other areas and just sort of fast tracking this so that there's not all that upfront kind of cost? Have you explored that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have. because we really thought if we could just be an expansion of Shoreline, and they just didn't, they're busy trying to expand themselves in a different direction up the Saanich Peninsula, and they just didn't feel that they had the resources to do that for us north of the Malahat. So that we definitely, because if we could have, skip all this charitable status piece, because that seems to be a big hurdle for us. So yes, the answer is yes. We don't really know of any other entities. I guess I do have a meeting coming up with a family physician who's working in the West Shore, in this new West Shore Primary Care Society, and I could talk to him about what he thinks about that.
I would suspect, I can't speak for everyone, but it might be a little easier to get some funding if under a proven model. Maybe that's something you could take to them, possibly, like from the board. I would suspect if you're able to piggyback on a proven model, I don't know, it might, just my thoughts.
Oh, so what?
So I'm just, sorry, you're here looking for funding and
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
I think if you were able to approach them and suggest there might be resources to help them expand.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Under their, maybe that.
I see.
There might be a conversation to have, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. And I recognize we're through our, sorry, no, thank you. This is a meeting of our board with our presenter. Sorry. Is this person part of your delegation? No, thank you. So just to get where I was going to get before interrupted from the gallery. So I think it's been answered. Where is Island Health in the province in this? So, we're at a crisis level. We see announcements all the time, typically things like, more nurse practitioners or fast tracking certifications for doctors and other healthcare professionals coming in from other parts of the world. Are you seeing any impact there, or is there just not a lot of faith that both Island Health and the provincial government is going to be able to move the needle at the pace that's needed?
Well, I'll start with the provincial government. I mean, the first thing is there is a new fee schedule payment mechanism for family physicians, which has been a welcome relief, and has been really strong uptake. And so kudos, that that payment scheme mechanism, I think, would fit beautifully into this model. The problem is if it's all about money, it's like whack-a-mole. Because now hospitalists are leaving hospitalist work, right, to do that, and it's just going to be this. The numbers just keep going up. Or people from Alberta and Saskatchewan. I was just in Saskatchewan, and I was telling them, they're like, "Oh, yeah, But then the Saskatchewan government is looking at modeling. So the money thing is not the only piece, for sure. In terms of availability of human resource that are being dumped down, I mean, our clinic, we've had our name in the hat for many months, and colleagues have had for many, many more months to have a nurse practitioner join our clinic to help retiring doctors. And there aren't nurse practitioners out there. Like, they're not falling from the trees. Like everywhere is short. And the other structure that is coming is the urgent primary care center. And I see, Cowichan is going to get a UPCC, and I do see that there can be strong benefit to the UPCC model. However, it's not really a model that supports hospital care, and it's not been a model that has necessarily a track record. And so I'm very hopeful that our UPCC, I think we have much more control in Cowichan because of that. And so the people that are working on that are passionate, and I'm very hopeful, but I don't see that it's the same as, it's complementary to what we're suggesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I think that based on time, we don't usually sort of make motions from delegations, but I know Director Wilson has been engaged with you. We've been playing tag, you more often with me and me not being able to connect, but I'll make that commitment at least to our board and to work with Director Wilson to work with you and perhaps bring something back. And I would invite you to take some of the feedback that we've gathered today, perhaps kind of bring an updated slide deck and presentation to us not too distant future, and Director Wilson and I perhaps can work with Doctor to sort of facilitate that conversation and see what possibilities might exist, that then we could maybe bring something back to this body, much like has been discussed today. Because I just think back to the conversation around the hospice, and I know these are two very different things, but we were not getting the support we needed to get that center built. We were looking at models that were successful in other communities and trying to build on those. And what we came up with was definitely uniquely Cowichan, but it was building on the strengths of different models and different inputs that were done elsewhere. And when I compare what we have here now to what we were comparing ourselves to at the time, I believe what we have here is better. And I believe that we could do that again. So I'd be, honored to try and be part of this. Even just as a citizen of our community that has connections. So, if it's okay with the board, if any other people want to volunteer to be part of it, you're welcome to. But maybe at this stage, we thank Dr. Sanders for the presentation, and Director Wilson's nodding, so he's agreed to be drafted into this ad hoc task force, if you will, and we can continue to communicate and meet and see what we can move along. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So with that, we're an hour and a half into our afternoon session, and we've gotten through our delegations and our public input. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. All right. We'll get back underway. As I predicted, 3:10 is now 3:14. I know. I was going to say.
Directors, we're live.
All right, we're back. So I know we're still on the first page of our agenda, which takes us to a report of the chairperson. I think I can just pick that up. So I reached out to board members about a possible liaison appointment to the Cowichan Housing Association Board of Directors, and having heard back from a number of the directors, I would like to recommend that we appoint Tim McGonigal, Director McGonigal, as our liaison to the Cowichan Housing Association Board of Directors. If he's willing to still accept that liaison role.
Humbled and honored, thank you.
Thank you, and as that is an appointment of the chair, I do not believe we need a resolution for that, so we can move on. Ms. Boyd.
We have no correspondence as item 7. Number 8, information. I think Shawnigan update, a recommendation for information.
Thank you. So we do have that there for information. Is there a presentation from staff or just here for questions? Or is there anyone here for questions? Do I have any questions from the directors that I can try to answer?
There was a director's information.
Right, yes. So Director Acton brought forward, and I was able to see them actually at the Shawnigan Museum groundbreaking, and they are quite wonderful, and was supported by ICE-T along with the other funders. I think it was the regional district, and no, it's just ICE-T. And they are quite beautiful, and good points all around, so thank you for that work, to the Shawnigan Residents Association that put that forward. And I'll follow up with you after about future funding opportunities and early disbursements. All right, so that's there for information. Next item is UBCM resolutions. We did pass, I'll go to Ms. Miles Wilson perhaps. I was just finding the motion in my emails. But I'll turn it over to you first.
Sure. And so this, I think, was put forward by Director Staples at the previous board meeting regarding proposed UBCM resolution regarding cost recovery from upper watersheds and privately managed forest lands to support watershed stewardship and climate change mitigation. So we have a proposed resolution. We can submit this by June 30th as a late resolution. There's no guarantee that it will be accepted to UBCM for consideration at this convention, but we have drafted it. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to staff member Keith Lawrence, who quickly drafted the backgrounder for this resolution on short notice. And I think it's great to have some staff with good background in this subject matter and expertise to pull that together on short notice.
Thank you. I also, though, as an addition to that item, was going to address the iced tea. I'm just trying to find it. It was emailed to me too. Oh, here it is. I got it. You got it? Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. I just got to scroll down here. There's too many emails in this thread. Thanks, Rebecca. There it is. Yep. So, as many of you may know, for the last couple of years, the Island Coastal Economic Trust has been working to advance a sustainable transformation of the trust in co-governance with First Nations. We did receive what I would consider lifeline funding or announcement of potential lifeline funding with some legislative changes to come forward in the fall. But our direction has been to continue to advocate for that sustainable co-governed trust model with the provincial government. Following that, I received an email last week from AVICC executive asking us to continue that dialogue with the provincial government. So today I wanted to bring forward a recommendation that the board directs staff to request a meeting with the Premier for the 2023 UBCM Convention to discuss the need for $150 million investment in the island's Coastal Economic Trust to facilitate and leverage impactful economic development in the region. And that would allow us, our staff, to work with the CEO of the trust to get that meeting request in by Friday's deadline and hopefully allow us to continue that dialogue with the Premier and the provincial government. Director McGonigal.
If you need that as a resolution, Mr. Chair, I would most certainly move that.
And that's been moved by Director McGonigal and seconded by Director Staples.
And if I may follow, I would hope that those included within the Island Coastal Economic Trust as representatives would also be in attendance during that meeting.
Yes, so I think we will probably solicit a small group of mayors and or chairs to attend that meeting to not make it overwhelming. But we have had support from every mayor and chair within the Coastal Trust region for this effort as recently as about 6 weeks ago. So we will be following up separately with a letter to the Premier. That's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. That takes us to, oh, sorry, Director Morrison.
Yeah, well, you were looking for the email. I picked this up in the previous resolution in regards to the forest lands, and I know that the whereases aren't particularly important, but I'm just, and I don't want to wordsmith at board, but there's something reading strangely around the second whereas where it can negatively impact the quality and the quantity of water and affect ecosystem resilience to the impacts of climate change. That just reads strangely to me, and I think there's a better way of wording that, and I realize it's not the enactment clause, it's a whereas. Just ask staff to have a second look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Deck?
I wonder if it should be affect instead of effect? 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it might read better.
Yes. So I see our CAO saying, okay, they'll take that under advisement. We'll give them some latitude to reword that submission, that request. All right, thank you. So that takes us, I believe, to committee and commission reports. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole meeting of June 14th, 2023. Director Morrison.
Over to Director Morrison.
Given these have all been printed and in the public view for some time, I would move all 8 items.
It's been moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Director Segal.
Can I speak to number 8?
You're welcome to.
Okay. Just a little bit of history that I found out this week. The Kerry Park Arena would never have been built if it wasn't for the community. The directors of the time didn't want it, but it went ahead because of the feedback that was received from our community. In my opinion, we shouldn't be delegating the authorities listed in this motion. Those decisions can be made at this board table by us, the elected officials. The commissions should be members of the community that are paying into this regional recreation service. Their voice is incredibly valuable, and we should take every opportunity to help guide our decisions here. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like that item pulled for separate consideration?
Yes.
Okay, we'll deal with item 8 separately. And I just want to see, because this numbering thing, 8-1A. And then, so that would be basically we're going to go 1 through 7, and the rest of it is 8 in various subsections. All right, on 1 through 7, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. We'll see how 8 goes. Director Morrison moving number 8.
Move it, and if there's a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Do we have a seconder for number 8? Director Nicholson, and we'll go to Director Morrison first.
Well, I completely concur with the director that's brought it up and had it pulled. I thought we gave this a pretty good go at the committee, and while I personally feel much along the lines of what's been described and more citizen involvement, I'm going to side with the folks that we had the decision, we had a round table, we had a fairly good discussion, and my understanding, it was pretty clear that we're going to go with the model that has been voted on, I think, a couple of times, and look at this again in a year. And I will be supporting the decision of the committee that recommended this to the board.
Thank you. Thank you. I have Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I will not be supporting this motion. We've seen the reduction of community input at all of our commissions and advisories, and I have never seen it increase. So I'm not going to bet on that in a year things may change. I prefer it to come from the users at the center, how it has been, and some of the models have worked quite well, and unfortunately we have abandoned some of the strengths from that community input, so I will be voting against this policy.
Thank you. Director McGonigal, then Wilson.
Thank you very much, and I think everybody knows where I sit on this. I think public participation in local recreation commissions makes for better decisions uniformly. My question, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Elzinga, if he's still here, as we transition from the funding model in a 3-year time frame, is the current commission model still in effect in the West Cowichan area for the remainder of those 3 years?
Mr. Elzinga?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to the director. So if I understand the question, is the current commission going for the next 3 years? The intention is no. The intention is that the new commissions would start this fall based on new commission establishment bylaws. That's what we've been working through to. If I may, Mr. Chair, just to add to the Couch and Lake consideration, there is the anticipation of a report coming forward July the 12th to address community hall governance in perhaps a different way. But the intention right now is that the Couch and Lake Recreation Commission would be new as of this fall.
Thank you very much for that clarification. And on that point, I'm unfortunately not able to support it.
Thank you. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm completely in agreement with what Director McGonigal, Acton, and Segal have said here. To me, public and community participation is paramount. These are the people who pay our wages. These are the people who pay taxes. Their input is vital. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone on my speakers list? I did not. So if there's no further speakers, I will call the question. And I know Ms. Boyd's ready to record the votes. All those in favor? And those opposed? Director Segal, Wilson, McGonigal, Staples, and Acton opposed. The motion carries.
Mr. Chair, is that not a weighted vote in this particular case?
No, it's not a financial vote.
Okay, thank you. Of course, thank you.
Thank you. So that takes us, I believe, Ms. Boyd, to CR2.
CR2, report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of June 21st, 2023. Director Nicholson.
Director Nicholson?
Your committee recommends 1 through 8. Does anyone want to pull
This is
anything?
1 through 8, so this
1
is...
through 8, yes. I think they're pretty straightforward, lots of grants in 8.
So you move
I
those?
move those. Yeah.
Seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Director Nicholson.
Does anyone like to pull 9 through 13? 9? So I would move 10 through 13.
So items 10 through 13 have been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, electoral area directors only. Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. That goes to number 9.
I move, the committee recommends that the 3-stream garbage, recycling, and organics curbside collection service will be implemented in the Cowichan Valley Regional District CVRD electoral areas as per the 2018 Solid Waste Management Plan, be a CVRD operated and delivered service.
That's been, sorry, we're just seeing it's been moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director McClinton. Discussion, Director Acton, and Wilson and Segal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've heard a lot on this topic, emails, community members, and this is just electoral area directors. So I look to my fellow electoral area directors who know the feeling that happens in a small community, in a rural community. Talk about how big the South is. It's still small enough to know your neighbors and to be affected by even garbage. It's woven into the community by a long-term private company that it's family. So, and by changing that, we're changing the fabric of the community a little bit. So I'm not asking, we're not discussing mandatory garbage. We know that has been approved. What I'd like to urge my fellow directors to do is just kind of use our heart here and our head, our mind of, can we do a little bit better? Have we done our best? And can we still make a difference? And is there an opportunity to save some of this ruralness that the community clearly feels is a really strong part of our identity in the South? So I've made a one-pager, just bear with me, I just want to be able to get all my points across. So we do know that in 2017, mandatory garbage was adopted by the board. At that time, we were told that we would have the option it would be explored if it was going to be CVRD or private. And so now, based on this report that we're accepting today, it's recommending CVRD fully model. So this document is, in my mind, lacking some information. It has no supporting documents, and I'd like to go through a few points where it has not does not answer questions in my mind. One, it argues that costs, the cost factor, one argument is that the public service will be less expensive because it will use automation, have large-scale shared assets, one stop to collect all 3 streams, et cetera. However, the actual estimates of the cost per household are higher than the current costs of a private service that is currently being offered in the South. So that makes no sense to me. And how much do the other areas pay for garbage service? I heard some numbers, they could be incorrect, and is that going to be on top of what is already being done in the other areas? And are the current expenditures being considered in the cost estimates that were brought forward? So again, we have no supporting documents for this staff report. The other point that's made in the staff report is about efficiency. There's an argument being made by staff that the multi-stream trucks are somehow more efficient, less fuel, time, et cetera, since they only visit each house twice, with each visit picks up 2 items. I would argue that this is unlikely because the trucks are not 2 times as big, i.e., they add up quicker and they'll have to go back and unload. So multi-stream trucks would get full quicker and, and like I said, they'd have to drive back to the transfer station. So there's no supporting documents here that says that's actually true, that they are more efficient. So we're making an assumption that is truly effective, truly affecting our communities. Communication is also mentioned as an argument for full-on CVRD service. The staff argues that communication would improve by having a single provider, but there's nothing to support that argument. Current communications from CVRD can't be shown to be any better than those provided by private contractors. So simply making the service public doesn't solve staffing issues either. I'd like to understand what's meant on page 3. It says, considering the CVRD is already providing recycling and garbage curbside collection in the electoral areas, utilizing unionized CVRD staff, the organics waste stream is the only waste stream that has been considered for private collection as part of the hybrid service. So which has even been considered, since we have no information on that option either. So is that saying that we have to have CVRD staff? And if that's the case, we should have been told that in 2017, because at that time we were told that there would be options.
Sorry,
And
Director
I do
Acton,
not-
I just want a piece of clarity. Are
Right.
you expecting responses from staff? Because if so, we should take these one at a time.
The other ones are just comments, because
Okay.
there is no supporting documents, and I haven't heard, we asked those questions and we didn't get a full answer. But on the unionized portion, it is a question, or could be just a statement. Again, we don't have a supporting document that says it has to be CVRD. Currently, the South is the only area that does garbage and compost. So I'd say we're doing better already. So I look to my other directors and say, maybe we do the other areas, figure out compost for them. We already have compost in CVRD. Do we go back to the drawing board and work together to find a better solution that supports all the communities, instead of being a vote that's coming down to just not using, I just don't think we've exhausted the opportunity here, and there's a lot of holes in this report at this time.
Thank you. If you would like a response from staff on any of those comments, I'll maybe come back to you, because it was a lot to take in, but I was taking it as like more of a statement. But if you would like responses from staff, we do have staff here prepared to respond if necessary. I will go to Director Wilson and then Segal, and then we can come back to answer some of those questions perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I am mindful that we are restricted in what we can say here as far as private business is concerned. So this is a lot of statement as well, not as much as previous, but this is for a news release from the CVRD on March the 11th, 2021, and it's about the social procurement. And I'm going to read a few of the sentences from there. We know our local businesses are passionate they're about their community, and we want to foster a culture of purchasing from businesses that add social value into our communities where we can. Another one, how they promote and provide social and community values such as local employment, youth and apprenticeship training opportunities, community development, and partnerships within the community. Next one, social procurement means that at the same time as this money is spent on improving communities, local benefits delivered through procurement will be increased through economic development, local employment, increased affordability, and greater access to services. And it does mention on page 2 of that the Coastal Communities Social Procurement Initiative, COSPI, which is basically the CVRD is a signatory to that initiative. And in there it says, vision to improve the health of our communities and the strength of our economies by changing the culture of public sector procurement. And then it says, implement purchasing that achieves community goals. I don't see any of that being done here. And I would like much more of that taken into consideration. And one question that I do have, and maybe I'm misreading the email strings, but I've asked a question on what would happen to, for instance, we have a community in Cobble Hill, which provides its own three stream, and they have a 3-year contract. Are they going to be allowed to opt out? Because we're told there is no opt out.
Are you talking about like an I&I, so that'd be a private contractor for a gated community?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so stratas are not included in 3-stream, I don't believe. I'm looking to staff to nod. That's correct.
And that's where I have my problem, because I'll tell you now, I'm going to get a lot of pushback from my community if we are exempting somebody from this 3-stream connection, even though they're paying for it themselves, whereas those who want to be opted out or exempted don't have that choice. We've got a conundrum here. Thank you.
The only comment I'll provide is that's the common for 3-stream solid waste pickup is stratas are usually exempted because they have dumpsters and they have services that come in and pick them up. Just for a piece of clarity, but I appreciate what your point is there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you can, I'm sure you can understand that the people outside of that committee are not going to be happy about it.
All right, Director Segal.
Thank you. We've heard loud and clear today from the community members in Area A, B, and C. 2,500 signatures on a petition in a week. I mean, this community is united and very motivated by this issue. We already have 3-stream waste management in the South Cowichan. The proposed model of a CVRD-run service totally makes sense for the other 6 electoral areas, but it doesn't make sense for Area A, B, and C, the South Cowichan. And we make up more than 50% of the population of the electoral areas. It's frustrating that we don't have that power, voting power, on the board. The voice of the South Cowichan should be heard and deserves local solutions that benefit the majority of the population. We're losing the benefit of a stellar, locally run service here, a service that is sustainable and valuable, and it's really sad for our community. So my question to staff is, can we separate A, B, and C from the other electoral areas to have a hybrid service?
Through to staff. I think I could probably answer that, but Ms. Sarday?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Siegel. I also have Mr. Stevens here to help answer questions. So the question is whether or not we can separate out the south end. The recommendation in the staff report was to make it feasible, financially feasible, for a contractor to take it over, the one stream, the organic stream. So in theory, we could separate out organics for the south end. We would have to go back and work with our consultant and see what those projections would look like. It would likely change the number of trucks and the costs for the service. Another question I would have is, how would we price that? So would this south end, so in theory then, the south end would have a hybrid service. Their cost might be different than the rest of the region. So I would have to figure out how would we structure that cost? Does everyone pay the same, even if the cost is higher in the south or not? I'm not sure how that would work, but in theory, that could be looked at, yeah.
Thank you. And just for clarity, though, that would be through an open procurement process that would need to be tendered out for all service providers.
And I'd like to check in with Mr. Stevens if he has anything to add to that.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I agree completely with Mrs. Sorority. Contracting that out to a single area or 3 single areas would have its challenges, as the director pointed out. The bulk of the residents are in those 3 areas, and if we were to exempt them from the services, the electoral areas outside of A, B, and C, their rates could be impacted by that change as well. So we'd have to look at different models, whether it included CVRD managing the financial aspect or the billing, if you want to call it that, for the entire region, and then subcontracting that work back out to ensure that the rates are fair across the board. And there's also the potential that the contracting that work out may also impact the entire region as well, whether their rates for the southern electoral areas are higher or lower than the rest of the region.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have some speakers being added to my list, so I'm going to make sure. I saw Director Abbott and I saw Director Wilson want to go on round 2, but I've got Director McClinton in front, and I'll put Director Acton again on round 2. I also wanted to clarify that the requirement for a open tender process would also include full service to all areas within those 3 electoral areas. Thank you. So I've got Directors Abbott and McClinton on round 1, and then Directors Wilson and Acton starting on round 2. Director Abbott.
I wonder if this could be referred back to staff to deal with what Director Segal brought up, which was a separate service for A, B, and C. At present, A, B, and C are seemingly well looked after by a private contractor for 2 streams. There's just 1 stream missing that the CVRD provides. Perhaps that contractor, and I don't know about the tendering out aspects, but perhaps that current contractor could look after the 3rd stream. But it's complicated, and I'd like to see a more fulsome report from staff on this.
Sorry, you're asking a question or making a referral motion?
Making a referral motion, but a commentary as well, that I believe that we need to have more information from staff, and that through the referral, they could look at separating out A, B, and C.
Sorry, I want clarity from Ms. Boyd. Would that a referral motion of that nature be all board or just the electoral area directors?
The decision today is just the electoral area directors.
So a referral motion would be back to, would just be A directors?
Yes.
Okay.
However, we do have the motion on the table right now.
Right,
It's
so.
been moved and seconded. That could be put to a,
But a referral motion supersedes it.
Yeah,
Right, so they're asking to refer the motion back to staff.
Thank you.
And that was moved by Director Abbott and seconded by Director Acton. On the referral now, so this will be on the referral itself. I have Director McClinton and then Director Morrison and Nicholson so far on the referral. And I'm going to keep it tight. This is on the validity of the referral.
The issue with the referral is it limits our ability to purchase the trucks in a timely fashion at a reduced cost. And so for that main reason, I won't be supporting it. I mean, come back to me. I just need to choose my words carefully.
Director Morrison, Nicholson, then Acton.
In regards to the referral, it's been made very clear that there are significant financial impacts to delay beyond the end of this month. And there's been a lot of information provided. I won't support referral.
Thank you. Director Nicholson, and then Acton and Wilson on the referral.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I believe if we delay, the cost to my area would be increased because of the loss of the being able to purchase the trucks. And also then if we go down the road into a hybrid model, it's also going to increase the cost for my area. So I'm going to definitely vote for my area's best interest today on this.
Thank you. I have Directors Acton, Wilson, and Martman.
It's my understanding that we already purchased a truck today for the areas, yeah, for the existing service. So rushing a decision that clearly doesn't have, if this does get referred back, and I do support the referral motion, I think understanding the costs of the different types of services would be really beneficial.
Director Wilson, and then Martman, and then McClinton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to start off with a little smile on my face here because a number of times I've walked into a car showroom and then been told if you don't buy it today, the price is going to be more tomorrow. So I don't support this idea of buying trucks now is going to cost us any less at all, even though we've already paid for them by the sounds of things. As far as significant cost impacts are concerned, I haven't seen any cost comparisons.
Propriety of referral.
Okay, I'll finish there then. I've made my point, I think.
Director Martman, and then McClinton.
Thank you. No, I don't support the referral. And speaking to the referral, we've had a number of questions asked, but nothing provided in answers. And staff are here to answer, so I look to defeat this and move to getting some questions answered by staff.
Thank you. Director McClinton.
Yeah, this is tough. I'll look to you, Chair, if I go outside my lane. This is about making a decision at the right time to move this forward and do what's right for the entire CVRD. And this is a huge step towards taking nearly 50% of our waste out of our landfills, which...
Propriety or referral?
Okay, thank you. And delaying on this now, I think, sets us back significantly. There's been countless reports put forward, and I think we have the information that we need.
Thank you. That was more on the referral. Thank you. Any more speakers to the referral? I'm loath to speak to it, but I would have to concur with what I've heard from the speakers against the referral. I can't vote on this, but if I could, I would definitely vote against the referral without reservation. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is on the referral. All those in favor and opposed? Director McClinton, Abbott, Morrison, Nicholson, Deck, and Martman opposed. The referral fails. So we're back to the main motion. I'm trying to find my place in my speakers list on round one, which was to Director McClinton after Director Abbott, and then we have Wilson and Acton on round two.
Thank you, Chair. I'll look to you and to the other senior directors to keep me in line. Yeah, on the motion, so I'm a little, but I do first want to thank all the people that came and spoke today. I listened intently, and I can certainly empathize deeply with my fellow directors who are, in the areas. Coming back to the point about what this means for our areas, the CVRD. Again, I said this at the electoral service area. We aren't doing a very good job of keeping organics out of our landfill. Well, we don't have a landfill. We have a transfer station, and we send it all down to Washington. This will be a major step forward for us to removing those organics from taking them out of our stream and doing something with them in a meaningful way. I certainly understand that many people feel that they're doing a pretty good job keeping their garbage out of the system, but the fact that's just not what bears out. And I've even had a few people call me, and I've listened intently about opting out. If you were to truly opt, and they'll say, I do my own composting, and I do my recycling, and I take it to Bangs Creek 3 times a year. That's not opting out. That's still being part of a community that is trying to do good for one another, all the way from the Yellow Point out to Lake Cowichan up to the top of the Malahat. So this is a very difficult decision, and I think we need to take our local areas hat off and think about what's best for all of the CVRD. And when there isn't strong competition within the private sector, it's shown time and again that is the space where government needs to step in for single user. The economy of scale has been proven time and time again to keep the costs down. So I think this is a really important issue that I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't got any more first-time speakers, so I've gone to round 2, Director Wilson, and then Acton and Segal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been hearing about we're going to stop sending waste down to Washington because it's expensive. I'm still unclear as to how we're going to achieve that. Where are we going to send it to instead? Certainly not Cobble Hill, because there will be civil war down there. Or are we taking enough rubbish as it is? But so where is it going to? How is it going to save us money? Where is it going to go to? Tell me, please.
Is that a question for staff? So this is about contamination of organics within the garbage stream going down to Rabanco in the landfill.
That's correct, yes. So where is it going to go instead?
It will go with the rest of the organic stream, which I believe at this point would be Fisher Road. It would be, yeah.
So there we go. Is it?
Ms. Sarade?
Fisher Road is already at capacity right now.
Ms. Sarade.
Thank you. Through to you, Chair, to Director Wilson. So as set out in some of our correspondence, right now, Fisher Road Recycling has the contract for all the organics that are being collected at our waste transfer stations. That includes the organics from the municipalities. I also believe Pan Disposal's organics are going to Fisher Road Recycling. As we mentioned, we will, when we know what is being collected, so if it's commingled food and yard waste or if it's just food waste, we're going to go out to a competitive bid. And we understand that there are 3 proponents that are interested in this bid, one being in Chemainus, one being in Cobble Hill, and one being in Nanaimo.
Thank you for a more
Yeah,
clear.
follow up, please, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And I have as you know, a very involved community. And I have a very involved problem, not just with what's being taken to the recycling, but with everything else that goes with that. I'm not happy about what we are doing at the moment with the recycling and subsidizing something which is basically not good for the community. And I would hope that far less is sent to our local area and sent somewhere else. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I'm going to bite my tongue and go to Director Acton.
Yeah, my question is, I'm curious how much the other areas are paying for that, and they're just currently getting garbage pickup. What does it cost for them? A household?
I know many areas don't get garbage pickup, but.
No, Area E gets garbage pickup, Area D. How much is it per year and the difference? Well, I think staff should be able to answer it. They're offering the service. So just some numbers, because we're making this decision with very few. No?
Through to you, Chair, to Sarah Acton. I have some general sense of the numbers, but I think Mr. Stephen has a much better sense of the numbers. As I recall from our recent amendment, the fee for weekly garbage pickup in the summer for electoral area is 200. And I know we just amended, because the fee of garbage has gone up, hence the fee needed to be adjusted. And for the areas that have weekly garbage pickup, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Stevens, I think it's 168 with recycling and weekly garbage. Well, thank you very much.
Because we have a number in the report that's 270, right?
Ms.
Okay,
Faraday.
so thanks to our friends in finance here, we got residents who have recycling only as of June 1st are paying $37. Residents with recycling and garbage are paying $178. And residents with garbage and recycling that has garbage weekly in the summer is 202. So you can, like if you want to calculate it out on each stream for weekly pickup, it's about $100
Per year?
in 2025.
I'm trying to have a comparable with versus our private service.
I think someone has done that calculation with comparing with a private service. The thing with so what we're talking about here is a mandated service for all residents at the same frequency. So it's a little bit tricky to compare it with a voluntary service that's pay as you go.
Well, so if a small, my thinking is if a small company is able to offer a service with garbage and compost, that's what my household gets. And a quick math is it's about $260 a year for both of those. And CVRD is saying, or maybe it's about $250, it's gonna be more than that. Surely if this company was able to bid on that project that was gonna go to every single door, they could do it for even less than what they're offering me right now. So I don't think all the numbers have been explored that we can offer our communities. And if CVRD is able to regulate it, as mentioned before, and then contract out the service, all areas save. And so the staff report argues that the public service will cost less, and I'm questioning that.
Thank you, Ms. Saraday, for your answer. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, we typically don't debate with staff members. We ask a question, you get the answer, and unless you expected a response from that from staff. I'm going to go to Director Segal.
I don't have a question, just a final comment. I agree with Director McClinton, diverting organics from the landfill is really important, but we're already doing that in areas A, B, and C. So again, this solution really makes sense for area D to I. I found it really interesting, Mr. Stevens' comments about if A, B, and C were to ask to be separate, that has such a financial impact on the rest. And it's just so frustrating. We have, that financial impact in the South Cowichan with the bulk of the population subsidizing this service for the rest of the electoral areas. I just feel like in the South Cowichan, we need different solutions and governance model to properly represent and serve our constituents.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'm going to call the question. This is for electoral area directors only. This is on the main motion as recommended from committee. All those in favor and opposed? Directors Segal, Wilson, and Acton opposed. The motion carries. That takes us, I think, to the end of the electoral area services report, Director Nicholson, because we did the other ones separately. Ms. Boyd, that's correct, is it? Not?
Yes, following along, 10 directors' reports.
Nope. CR3. And so that's the reports and recommendations of the committee of the whole meeting from today. Director Morrison.
And since it was from today, I'll read it. Reports and recommendation of the committee of the whole meeting from this morning. Recommendation 1. One, that the 2023 budget for Function 498 be amended and approved to A, decrease the Housing Trust Fund by $14,500, B, increase grant to organization by $14,500, and 2, that the Cowichan Housing Association's request for $14,500 to host a housing forum in the fall of 2023 be approved. I move that item.
That's been moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Staples. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. I realize I was reticent in reporting out on the previous item that board had given direction to staff, depending on the outcome of that decision, to I gotta find that one again. Sorry, I'm finding another motion. I've got it here. That staff be directed to continue consultation with Pan Disposal and explore options for the transition of their business as impacted by the implementation of three-stream service by the CVRD. So that direction's been given to staff pending the outcome of the last discussion and vote. So it was appropriate to do that right after. I apologize for that. I think I was caught in the crossfire. With that being stated, I think that will move us to Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. With the Cowichan Housing Association, the report and recommendations that came through just past now, that's fine, but we also have one more that was to be expedited up to this meeting as well.
So that was the other one for the Elder Care
Yes,
Society?
thank you. And I have a
Director McGonigal?
I have to declare a conflict of interest, Mr. Chair and fellow directors, as I am a director on the Cowichan Lake Elder Care Society.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. We'll wait for you to leave. Just stretching that hip in all the wrong ways. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, this is a Mr. there, but report from the Corporate Services Department, re the Cowichan Housing Association's Lakewood Manor Project, Cowichan Lake Elder Care Society. Recommendation that it be recommended to the board that the 2023 budget for Function 498 be amended and approved to decrease the Housing Trust Fund by $75,000, B, increase the grant to organization by $75,000, and 2, that the Cowichan Housing Association's request to disperse $75,000 to the Cowichan Lake Elder Care Society for pre-construction costs associated with the Lakewood Manor project be approved.
So moved.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Staples. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. I know it feels like we've been at this a long time. I'm actually going to call for a 10-minute recess. We'll come back at 4:15. All right, we will resume. Over to Ms. Boyd. I believe we're at staff reports.
Thank you, Chair. SR1, Report from the Finance Division, read 2024 Budget Calendar. The recommendation that the attached 2024 Budget Calendar be approved by the Board.
Moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Director Martman.
There's confusion around October 4th, because it says it's a Thursday, or when it's a Wednesday.
So October 4th is a Wednesday, but it says Thursday in the staff
I think
report.
that's what,
So was it meant to be October 5th, the Thursday, or the Wednesday, which is would be, I think, no, that's not even a rate, oh, that's EAS special.
yeah, that's what, so I'm wondering if we're having a morning meeting or,
Through to staff.
Through the chair to Director Martman, that should probably be a Thursday, the 5th of October, because it's a special EASC.
and a follow-up?
Okay, so we'll take that correction. I'll get your follow-up in just one moment. Are the mover and seconder willing to take that correction? Okay, follow-up, Director Martman.
How does this compare with the number of meetings in the last year?
Looked like a lot to me, but put that through to Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Martman, this is the same amount of meetings that we had as we did this year for the same budget.
Just a comment, I don't like more meetings, but I'm wondering if we have more.
So, if I may, and Ms. Bowen can interject if she wishes, but generally, a lot of these meetings, I think last year we had a number of new directors, so that did influence the process and the time it took. But also, if necessary, as we progress through the budget process, if it was recognized that we needed more time, we have added additional meetings in the past. Not that I like more meetings, but sometimes those are a necessary evil. Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to the board. So we tried to keep them separate from the days where you actually have your EASC or board, because then it's too much on you guys to have to deal with all budget in the morning and then all afternoon you're doing something else. So we're just trying to kind of separate that out so that you're not getting bogged down too much on one day with certain items.
Just a follow-up.
Yep.
I know that Director Wilson will want to be sharpening his pencil, and I hope we're bringing my erasers, so that's why I need to nail these things down now.
Appreciate the levity. Are you okay for now then with the correction? And I've got Director Nicholson and then Staples. She was way ahead. Director Nicholson?
It's really important for me to, and I think we've talked about this when we had our strategic planning session, that we would have some sort of a discussion before we got into the budget about how our strategic priorities, I'm at a loss for words, but how we were going to use the strategic priorities to inform the budget process in a more transparent way, I think. And so are we going to have I guess it's a question to staff, are we going to have a follow-up meeting, discussion, workshop about that, or, because I think it would be really helpful.
Ms. Miles Wilson.
Through the chair to the director, I expect probably within the next week we'll have the updated draft of the strategic plan, and I will be sharing it with the board, at which time we can talk about a final session and talking about how it's incorporated into the planning cycle. But I think we will have a document that, and through all the meetings that we've had, that can help inform the process for sure.
Thank you. Sorry, did I see a hand from staff? Ms. Bowen?
Yeah, so it's, through the chair to the board, we had also, during the last budget process, you guys were asking for having a 101 kind of board orientation about a whole budget process. And I was just wondering if that was something you guys still wanted to do as an item, and then we can fit it into the calendar for you so that you could kind of know ahead before you start looking at the meetings. You kind of know what's happening and understand what our reports are and what we're doing in the finance department to get it all ready for you guys.
I'm looking to our CAO, maybe when we talk about our draft strategic plan and reflect on how that'll be reflected in our budget process, that perhaps we consider that discussion, because I think it would flow naturally from that. Ms. Mohan? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's exactly right. I think the combination of finishing the strategic plan work, right, and then having a budget workshop that would, because when you went into budget this year, there were a lot of new members. It was their first time through budget. We did a bunch of orientation, but you don't really know what that means until you actually go through the budget cycle. And then it helps to have that information repeated and added to again. And that's kind of the session that Tracy is suggesting that we have, is another budget workshop. It's kind of like the next level of budget education. And now you have context for that because you've gone through it once, for those of you who are new. And then hopefully the timing will coincide with when the strategic planning work is done, and so we may be able to craft an agenda that includes that as well. So,
Thank you. So I think that if I'm not seeing any, because we're just discussing this calendar that's in front of us that's been moved and seconded, but I do see general agreement with that process flowing out of the strategic plan adoption. Thank you. Director Nicholson, are you good? Thank you. I have Director Staples and then Morrison.
Mine's just a simple request that calendar invites go out as soon as this is adopted. Thank you.
Yes, I would concur. Director Morrison.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was going, and I'm sure staff have already done a filter or a matrix of external meetings and the likes for appointees, so I'm sure that's already been done, and if not, it probably should be, and I'll just assume it has been. And the other one is, and this sort of falls to a little pre-planning for staff and for the agenda review folks. I'm not sure if anyone else is experiencing the weight of the volume of reading that we're doing, but I know new directors got it through a fire hose at the beginning here, so it was a little unfair, but I'd like to just suggest that we are very cognizant of our workload and reading load, and when we're having other meetings, we may have to ask staff to be a little more judicious and give us later agendas when we're lined up next to a meeting. We could have EAS one day and EAS budget meeting the next day, and it could be a pretty heavy burden to bear and to know our material well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Acton.
Not budget related, but Director Morrison brings up a point that I keep meaning to actually get clarity around this with staff. In my mind, the staff report should be all you have to read. The supporting document is if you want to like really go down and like, but getting like 100-page, 200-page reports from consultants, surely you can't expect everybody to read every single word. So I hope that's the culture here and the perception as well from staff, because yeah, we just, so then if you ask a question that you have to go look through the supporting documents for, then maybe that can, that's fine. But anyway, to that main question.
To the motion. So I would just say that this is not part of the discussion we're having, but I know that in conversations with our CAO, there had been a tendency for this voluminous supporting documentation that was developed as a culture of inquisition from directors in the past. So the staff report, if it didn't satisfy their curiosities, those appendices were provided to give directors the sense that all the information was there for them. So I think that's perhaps, because I think that's more an EAS related phenomena, that maybe the Electoral Area Services Chair and staff can work together on trying to sort of tighten those up or make the staff report full enough that it's only the odd question that was needed to hunt out in the appendices. But I was just thinking of these back-to-back days and thinking if you got a full EAS agenda and then a budget day after, that could be, I would say, I said 1,000 pages in my mind, but that's maybe not out of the question. So points well made, and I'm sure staff is hearing that. Thank you. So on the budget calendar, We've made the one date correction that Director Martman brought up. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. I think I've checked against my calendar to hope that my appointment, but you never know until the meetings come up. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We got the calendar out of the business. Let's go to report from the Finance Division regarding the 2022 Statement of Financial Information. The recommendation that the Cowichan Valley Regional District's 2022 Statement of Financial Information attached to the June 28th, 2023 report from the Finance Division be received.
Moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. SR3, report from the Recycling and Waste Management Division, read the curbside collection budget F515. Short-term borrowing. The recommendation that the 2023 budget function 515 curbside garbage and recycling be amended by A, increase MFA funding short-term to $6,560,221, and B, increase capital expenses $6,660,221, and two, that the short-term borrowing of up to $6,560,221 for 3 curbside trucks, bear-resistant curbside garbage collection totes, kitchen catchers, glass collection bins, and software under function 515, curbside garbage and recycling be paid back over 5 years as per the liabilities under agreement section 175 of the community charter be approved.
Thank you. It's been moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director McClinton. Discussion. Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's $5.5 million, $6.5 million that we're going to borrow over 5 years. And that will be spread repayments, I'm assuming, to the EADs. This doesn't include anyone else. Do you have any idea how much that would add to the tax, the repayments on the tax, property taxes of our local areas, please, Finance?
Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Wilson, I'm going to have to look that up because I don't have that right at my hands right at this moment. So.
Okay, and just to follow up there as well, and I'm assuming then that addition, if it's approved, which I suspect it will be, will go on the property taxes as from 2024, when we already have a possibility of 3.5% target. Would that be included in the 3.5%, these repayment costs?
Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Wilson. So when it comes down to short-term borrowing, we don't actually borrow until we actually have the product in hand and we actually put it into play.
Yeah.
Then we pay for the product. So we may not get them until 2025.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And I believe with curbside, this is part of the service charges that will be charged. It's not a tax. It doesn't go on as a property tax.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Acton.
Yeah, I think it was 1.8 million grant. What was that covering? Because I thought the totes were part of the grant.
Mr. Stevens, I see you now waving your hands. Thank you, Director Toporowski, for the heads up. I'm looking at my agenda, not my screen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's about $1.9 million is what the grant is for, and that's Clean BC grant. And what that goes towards is equipment specifically towards the organics collection of our program. So it doesn't include things like trucks and that type of equipment or labor, but it does go towards organics equipment such as bins, totes, kitchen catchers, consultants, and staff to set up the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor and opposed? Director Acton opposed. The motion carries. Moving on, SR4, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Report from the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, read the 2023 UBCM Minister Meeting topics. The recommendation that staff submit the following minister meeting request. Minister Ralston, Minister of Forests regarding Stocking Lake Dam rebuild and funding shortfall. Premier Eby and Minister George Heyman regarding the current funding shortfall for the Cowichan Lake Weir and the priority of this project for reconciliation with Cowichan tribes. 3, Minister Rankin, Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation regarding enhanced supports for reconciliation, including C2C program with Minister Rankin, Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. 4, Minister Conroy, Minister of Finance regarding the new fiscal framework for local governments and more flexibility in the MRDT program to support affordable housing issues. 5, Minister Kang, Minister of Municipal Affairs regarding governance and servicing challenges in South Cowichan, areas A, B, C, and exploration of alternative governance models. 6, Minister Heyman, Minister of Environment regarding investment and partnership in flood management and mitigation and addressing issues on privately managed forest lands. And 7, Minister Heyman, Minister of Environment regarding taxation cost recovery from forest companies to assist with river management.
Sorry, Director Douglas?
Yeah, I would like to make a couple suggested tweaks to the recommendation.
Sure.
All right. Or I can wait for.
Ms. Wilson, Miles Wilson, did you want to say anything before we go to the board members?
No, in the
Just-
sake of brevity, I'm just here to take notes and answer any questions about the meeting
Okay,
requests.
and I should have rightly put the iced tea motion under here, not the earlier item, but we've dealt with it. So Director Douglas.
Yeah, just a couple suggestions. One is with regards to number 6, and we discussed this prior
yes.
to the meeting, Mr. Chair, is North Cowichan has also requested a meeting with the minister regarding flood management and the Ushmanus River watershed, which I know that's not said here specifically, but my understanding is that's what we're getting at with number 6. But I want to suggest that because North Cowichan's already put this request in, that we could just combine the meeting. It could be a joint North Cowichan and CVRD meeting with the minister regarding that issue.
Yeah, and for clarity, I had a phone conversation with Mayor Douglas in that, and I did say I would support that conversation. So I'm not sure if it's necessary to make that request, or I can join Mayor Douglas in that meeting. And would it be with Minister Heyman though, or Ralston?
I think our meeting request is with Minister Cullen for Waterlands and Resource Stewardship.
Go ahead.
Just a suggestion is that oftentimes local governments both submit the meeting requests in coordination with each other because it does show the greater importance of the issue. So I would suggest that it come from multiple sources, but just be a coordinated effort on the topic of the meeting.
So perhaps out of this, if this passes, we can just ask we can
staff.
coordinate with Municipality of North Cowichan.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
And the other suggestion, Mr. Chair, was with regards to number 7, meeting with the Minister of Environment regarding the taxation cost recovery with forest companies to assist with river management. What I was going to suggest with there was if we're talking about private managed forest lands, we should really be meeting with the Minister of Forests, which is Minister Ralston. And number 1 is already for a meeting with Minister Ralston. So my thinking was we could combine points 1 and 7, request a meeting with Minister Ralston, but have 2 topics, the Stalking Lake Dam and the issue with regards to the private managed forest lands. No?
I think.
Or 2 separate meetings, but it should be with the same minister.
Yeah.
Because it's ultimately the Minister of
So,
Forests that has.
point well made on number 7, that Minister Heyman, it would be Minister of Forests, I think, that we would want to talk to, so we could amend number 7 to say Minister Ralston. But I share my colleague, Director McClinton's, that we want to keep the Stalking Lake request separate because it's also coming from Lady Smith.
All right.
Okay? Are we okay with those changes? Is that moved by Director Morrison, or, no, go ahead, Director Morrison.
And it may have just been for sake of brevity in number 7, but the companies assist with river management. I thought we were talking watershed, drinking watershed management. It wasn't specifically river management. I think it was riparian lakes, any drinking water sources that are negatively impacted by practices on forest lands. River to watershed?
Watershed management instead of river management?
What I would suggest is the UBCM resolution that we've crafted, the topic is the same topic, and we can just reflect, make sure that they're similarly worded, and we can work on that.
because it's flood and drought, it's the impacts on our watersheds from logging practices. So I just think watershed management instead of river management would make sense. And that it would be with Minister Ralston. Here we go. I think I go to Director Wilson next.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Number 5, it says in there, that's the Minister Kang regarding governance and servicing challenges for areas A, B, and C, etc. We've been allocated, I think, $60,000, which we know is probably not going to be enough. At that meeting with the Minister, is that a time to ask or explore the possibility of extra funding if needed?
My answer would be yes, but
Well, through the chair, in consultation with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff, they believe, based on other similar studies, that this is a preliminary look at the a community issues assessment.
Okay.
There's a number of steps that would be following after, should you gauge in the community that there's an interest to explore alternative governance models. And so this is, and the advice that we've gotten, this is sufficient to complete the community interest assessment.
Okay.
Should that indicate that there's support and the board should support moving towards governance and services study, that would be a secondary step. And that was the scope of what came before the board
Okay, yeah.
previous budget.
So bringing that up with him at the UBCM is not the time to do it.
Well, I mean, I think that you can discuss potential of moving to those steps, but you're really at the
Yeah.
first step, and there's still many more to come.
Yeah.
So I think general support for moving forwards in a process. I mean, if it's your prerogative how you'd like the meeting to go, but we'll be working with
Sure.
you on the briefing package for that and getting some key messages.
Good, thank you.
thank you. Any further discussion? Have we had this moved and seconded? No. So with the changes that we've included, so number 7 being with Minister Ralston around watershed management, and I think, what was the other change? Oh, and just to work with North Cowichan on number 6. All right, we're all clear. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Segal. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Go ahead.
Keep on moving. Public hearings, none. Bylaws, that the CVRD bylaw 4333 official community plan amendment bylaw 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Wilson. This is OCP bylaw, but it's not under electoral area directors only. I'll accept that, but is there a reason why land use bylaws are for all board members?
Not that I'm aware of.
Bueller? Yeah, because the next one's a zoning amendment, and it's also for all directors. Well, I have a feeling my municipal colleagues will hopefully support these, so if those votes aren't, those can be discarded if ineffectual. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. B2, that CVRD bylaw 4334 South Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw 2020 be adopted.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Acton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. On to B3.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4476 Wilmot Road Drainage Service Amendment Boundary Extension PID 005-490-383 bylaw 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. 14 bylaws, and continue with the electoral area directors. That CVRD bylaw 4466 Yubo Mead Creek Critical Location Street Lighting Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Deck, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4467, Couch and Station Satlam Glenora Critical Location Street Lighting Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Acton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4496, Electoral Area G, Saltaire Gulf Island Zoning Amendment bylaw 11224, Chemainus Road, PID 003067327, 2023, be granted first and second readings.
Oh, question, Director McClinton.
Yeah, I'll move it. Through the staff, is it not supposed to have third reading as well, or am I just mistaken? Granted first, second?
Sorry, we don't have land use staff here to answer the question, I don't believe. Oh, sorry, I can't. Well, sorry, Mr. Tippett, I didn't see you back there. I just saw a hand behind Director Martman's head.
I had Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you. I missed you as well. Thanks for asking me this question. I think, so this is a zoning amendment, right? So we would only give 2 readings at a single occasion for a zoning amendment because there has to be either a public notice or a public hearing between second reading and third reading. So hopefully that explains it. Thank you.
It does, thank you. I'll move the motion.
Seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. BEA for that CVRD bylaw 4498, Cherry Point Estates Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That BEA 5, that CVRD bylaw 4499, Cary Village Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director McClinton. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4500, UBO Water System Service Merger Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Deck, seconded by Director Martman. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4501, Fern Ridge Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Acton, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That CVRD bylaw 4502, Bald Mountain Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Deck, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 9, that CVRD bylaw 4503, Dogwood Ridge Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And last, that CVRD bylaw 4504, Douglas Hill Water System Service Amendment Requisition Limit Increase bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. We have no resolutions or unfinished business, notice of motion, and new business. We have question period. Questions can be addressed to items on the agenda, one question. You will have one follow-up question thereafter. And if there's questions, time for questions, further up questions after that, and there's time, we can ask those.
Thank you. Welcome to take the microphone. Just make sure you press the blue button before you speak and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marina Sapochnikov. I'm a doctor. I work in Valley View. And my question is to Director Manhas. Would you like me to answer your question about the number of unvaccinated nurses that were fired?
So, yeah. So our policy is that questions are to and through the chair. But if you have an answer, feel free.
Yes, thank you. So when vaccine mandate started, about 4,000 nurses were fired in BC, and a higher number of nurses took early retirement. None of these people were hired back, and according to Minister Dix, there is no plans to hire them back. And there is a large number of doctors that took early retirement, and many of the doctors that are like all the doctors that are still unvaccinated are not allowed to work at the hospitals or any VIHA facilities.
Thank you.
And the implication of this number, we do not expect any number or any doctors to come back to the province, and no influx of doctors. So before you consider supporting the bicycle model, you probably should consider that manpower is not going to come back. Thank you.
Thank you. To our further questioners, that was a good workaround by asking the question before making the statement, but questions for the chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you. I'm wondering, how has the CVRD applied the following guiding principle number 8 from the Cowichan Valley Regional District Guiding Principles for the 2018 Solid Waste Management Plan update? And I can read that to you if you don't know that.
You can read it to me
Okay,
if
all
it's
right,
brief. So statements.
It's short.
Yep.
Okay. It says, as the CVRD's guiding principle, support practical and effective delivery of waste management services from public and private service providers and level the playing field within the region for private and public solid waste management facilities. So I'm just confused how that meshes with.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So based on the decision of the body today, that we'll be moving forward with the three-stream pickup. I did read out the resolution after that directed our staff to work through the transition with the folks at PAN. So that will continue moving forward, and I think that as best as possible satisfies that condition at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we still have time in question period. Hi, Ms. Kaufman.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Susan Kaufman from Satnam. I had asked you a question at the June 14th, 23 board, and you were going to report back.
I may have gotten the answer and forgotten, but usually you'd send me an email so I could be prepared. What was the question again, Ms. Kaufman?
That was in reference to CR 614-1 and 2, the Shawnigan Boat Launch Feasibility Study, and the BC Parks and MOTI, Malahat Nation Shared Management Opportunities, and the province being committed to negotiation of a park collaborative management agreement as per a treaty association AIP. In
Now I know I don't have the answer because that's going to be a complicated one to answer, so I will work with our staff to go through that because that's got a lot of detail to it and a lot of things that need to be investigated. So unfortunately, it's not ready for this meeting. I'll continue to follow up with park staff and look to support from our staff to be able to bring you that answer back.
Thank you. It seems.
Yeah, could you just email it just so that I can distribute it through staff?
Yeah,
because
I think
that'll
it's
touch on
important.
multiple points.
Yeah, I think it's important that that be investigated before any
Yeah.
further steps. And then for the good of the community, I have 2 points, if I may.
If there are questions, absolutely.
Yeah, they are. We heard at the Committee of the Whole presentation about the cannabis growers, and I was wondering, does the CVRD have, or will they consider having an agricultural advisory commission made up members of our agricultural committee. I think because the board had previously given the ag community an opportunity to review the agricultural policies in the proposed MOCP. So I think it would be, I mean, obviously, we had people come from the ag community to make that request, and, you know, maybe there should be an investigation if they would like to take a formal part.
Yeah, and I think that I can't make any commitments as the chair for the decisions of the body, but I think that we've heard that, and I know that I think perhaps the chair of our governance committee may present that as an option, also being a farmer. But I can't say for sure, but I can say that we've heard from the agricultural community in many different ways on a number of topics, including Director Martman's discussion of the cannabis issues as it relates to agriculture. So it won't be the end of the discussion, but I can't make that commitment today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we are going into the Canada Day long weekend. We are in a high forest fire rating right now. Fireworks has traditionally been an issue, and we have not, the community has not seen any notice from the CVRD to caution people about the regulations and to be careful. And I was really hoping that that could happen.
Question mark?
Question mark.
I will follow up with communications staff after this. I'm not aware of any civic even though the chair usually doesn't look to staff for an answer, but.
I think this was important. On our website, we actually have updated the website about fireworks and the ban that's on right now all around the province. And we've also been in contact with all our neighbors to have them do that as well. And we've also been in contact with our communications people to also get something on social media.
So they need to do that because it's Wednesday.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. I'm going to be talking to communications as soon as this meeting's adjourned about other stuff, so I'll add it to the list.
Thank you, because it didn't come up on my social media feeds that I subscribe to with the CRD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes left for question period.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your patience. Kim Bernard, Shawnigan Lake. Now that garbage is changing, I want to ask if there will be consideration made for the seasonal inundation we face in a tourism zone, trying to keep up with garbage. And the public infrastructure doesn't allow yet for three-stream waste diversion. And so I'm just wondering how, or if there will be a plan for that.
So tourism wouldn't affect generally residential garbage collection, which is what this is. Commercial garbage collection is conducted by each commercial enterprise on their own.
So CVRD parks garbage cans don't currently support waste diversion?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And don't collect returnables, and
Yeah, I
other
appreciate
parks
that.
models
So
do have that separated stream?
I will have to, well, actually, many of them have abandoned them because of the high level of contamination within the recycling in our municipality anyway. We found that the contamination was so high, all items ended up being disposed of in landfill. But there are some creative solutions that we've found some success with, like external baskets on the garbage to put bottles in. But that being said, I'd have to refer that to Parks. I'm not sure if they have anything planned.
Much appreciated.
Thanks.
And my follow-up question is, Mr. Chair, are you aware of any concerns expressed by the board or staff as a result of the work that I and my fellow community volunteers have been doing to facilitate community discussions around the various CVRD topics that come up from time to time? Are there any concerns, or can we keep doing that work?
You are free to do whatever work it is that you feel is important. I would always say that if you conduct yourselves in a collaborative and open way, that generally you'll find that you actually get more traction with local governments. But absolutely, community members working together to make good solutions to better our communities is always welcomed.
Thank you, and we appreciate being able to leverage that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Still got a few minutes left, folks. All right, seeing none, I'll look for a motion to go into closed session. I'm going to get Ms. Boyd to read out the reasons, and then we'll get the motion.
Motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections as noted. CSM 1, closed session regular board minutes, June 14th, 2023. CSCR 1, acquisition, disposition of land of Section 91E. FOIPA of Section 91J, and negotiations, Sections 91K.
Moved by Director Douglas.
Not done.
Oh.
CSSR, sorry, Chair. Labor Relations, Section 91C, and Negotiations, Section 91K, and CSSR2, Personal Information, Section 91A. Thank you.
Moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Justice. All those in favor?